Chapter 26. To know. Lin Yan now. Someone who has the strength to challenge General Marine. Certainly. If you really encounter someone, you must run if you can. But it's not like these few ants in front of you can touch porcelain. Feeling the danger conveyed by Lin Yan. After all, he is still a member of the CP0 organization. They were not fooled. Come together. As one of them scolded, the four of them acted like precisely controlled machines. At the same time, attacks were launched towards Lin Yan from four different angles. Four people join hands. The strength that explodes must be extraordinary. But is it useful? After one breath, under Lin Yan's feet, there were four more dead bones. After dealing with these five troublesome guys, the hostility in Lin Yan's eyes did not disappear. He shouted to the people around him, "Aren't you planning to come out yet?" Lin Yan absolutely didn't believe that these five guys dared to come to trouble him. As early as the beginning, he had already discovered other people lurking around him. Yet, I didn't expect you to be so vigilant." As Lin Yan finished speaking, a woman appeared in front of him. It was a man wearing an orange lining, a white cape on his fragrant shoulders, and a sun hat with a red rose hanging on the hat. He was dressed in gorgeous attire, behaved elegantly, and his every smile was exciting and captivating. Guo Qingchen's face was unparalleled in the world. With a slim waist, she walked slowly in front of Lin Yan with lotus steps. The moment I saw this woman, Lin Yan was stunned for a second. This appearance. She is truly naturally beautiful and has skin as smooth as cream. Even the rumored Empress Boya Hancock is probably nothing more than this. Of course, Lin Yan had never seen Boya Hancock's true face. It's very rude to look at a woman like that. Stussy brushed her hair beside her ears and said with a smile on her beautiful face. "Who are you?" Lin Yan asked. "I think there is no need to answer your question. You are going to die soon." Stussy said with a smile. "Even if you are going to die, you should die clearly, right?" "Let me guess, Queen of Fun Street, Stussy." Lin Yan joked. "Stussy. Queen of Happy Street. I once received a message from the Big Mom Pirates to attend the wedding of Big Mom's daughter, which was held by Charlotte Pudding and Sanji. Unfortunately, Luffy and the others made a big fuss about the wedding in the end and took Sanji away, allowing Sanji to return to the Straw Hat Pirates. On the regiment. But the Queen of Fun Street is just Stussy's hidden identity. It's like Minga is ostensibly a member of the Seven Warlords of the Sea, the Lord of a Country, and the Dongquixote family. In fact, he is a member of the world's underground organization. It's just that very few people know this kind of identity. Likewise, the same goes for Stussy. The CP0 organization and the Tianlong people are the ones she is loyal to. It seems that you are quite capable." Stussy's face changed. She never thought that her identity would be revealed by the guy in front of her at a glance. "Interesting, you little pirate surprised me. I'm going to continue to guess, are you going to kill people and silence them now? Now that you know everything, why do you have to say it? You and the little girlfriend behind you, neither of you can even think of leaving here today." Lin Yan looked at the other party and said, "You are a member of the CP0 organization after all, but your tone of voice is different. I hope your strength can be as impressive as your tone." When Stussy heard Lin Yan reveal his identity, "I already have the intention to take action. There is no use in talking more." She put her foot on the ground. Like an arrow, Stussy arrived in front of Lin Yan in the blink of an eye. Although they were wearing high heels, their speed was unmatched by anyone before. "Point the gun." The slender fingers flicked, and the strength gathered on the fingertips. Then a beam of light was fired towards Lin Yan's heart. The most poisonous woman's heart. I wanted to avoid Lin Yan with one move. Pity. After elementalization, the finger gun passed through Lin Yan's heart. Armed domineering energy was attached to the legs, and in conjunction with shaving, he raised his long legs high, using the force to split Huashan Mountain. His fragrant feet slashed towards Lin Yan. Clang! If it was a long knife with a sharp edge, Lin Yan would naturally be able to hide and hide. But the opponent is Stussy, and he still strikes with long legs. There is no reason to dodge. Lin Yan caught Stussy's move with one hand. The two of them formed a three-point line with the ground. It happens to be a straight horse posture. I don't know how you obtained such a powerful power, and now that you have obtained it, a friendly reminder, you still need to be careful. Tisk, 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 gone. Lin Yan just glanced uncontrollably. He had no choice but to do it. Who could a normal man resist such a horse posture? Besides, Stasi was wearing scantily clad clothes. A real man is to look normal for a moment, look away immediately after finishing the work, and still pretend to be serious. Humph, why not show it to you? Stasi didn't take it seriously, it was just a dead person and he wouldn't tell anyone. But why is there a bear pattern there? Lin Yan added another sentence. As soon as these words came out, Stasi's face suddenly darkened. I don't have the calmness I had before. It's none of your business what I wear. You get a good deal and still act nice. Stasi is also a 6-position master herself. In terms of strength, it's not even inferior to CP9's Liu Qi. Several Daolan kicks were kicked out from her legs, and the blades were like a forest of swords. Lin Yan dodged left and right, easily dodging Lan's feet. After he paused, he said again, are you in a hurry? Bang 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 bang. 20 or 30 douses were fired from Stasi's hand. The scene can be described as a hail of bullets. A flash of red light flashed in Lin Yan's eyes, and his domineering aura was turned on, and all the finger guns were avoided by him. Lin Yan said, I'm so anxious that I won't tell you, haha. Court death. Stasi flashed behind Lin Yan and kicked him with another long leg. Pity. No matter how she attacks. But they were all easily resolved by Lin Yan. Seeing that he had exerted all his strength, Lin Yan still looked at ease. Stasi frowned, and she suddenly realized that world government or marine. They had very serious misunderstandings about Lin Yan's strength. Who are you? An elite member of the CP0 organization. It's not comparable to the 5 miscellaneous fish from before. But even so. But he still couldn't help himself with the guy in front of him. He even often fell into the disadvantage in confrontation. Stasi paused. She realized something was wrong. Aren't you going to take action? Then, it's my turn. Seeing Stasi stop, Lin Yan's voice came. Over. Chapter 27. This sentence was just finished. Lin Yan had already arrived in front of Stasi. So fast. The rapid speed made Stasi's expression change. Feeling the threat of death coming from Lin Yan. Iron. She squatted down half-step like a hammer stance and performed the famous stunt among the 6 marine poses. Certainly. The end result speaks for itself. It has the power of the dark fruit, combined with the aura of armed domineering. Lin Yan punched out. With just one move, Stasi's iron block was broken. Stasi simply couldn't bear the impact of Lin Yan. The whole person flew out violently, knocking down dozens of towering trees behind him, and finally fell down under the cliff. There was a sweet taste in the mouth, and blood spurted out directly. Lin Yan shook his head, it's not good to use anything, I just use iron. Stasi wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Although she was surprised by Lin Yan's strength, there was no fear of death in her beautiful eyes. She said in a calm tone, you can't kill me. Pfft. Just finished. Lin Yan's hand had already passed through her chest. Stasi looked down at her empty body with disbelief in her eyes. You. She wanted to raise her hand, but the rapid loss of life force in her body made her whole body shaky. Can't I kill you? Then what? Lin Yan asked. I will, come back, to find you. This sentence seemed to use up all her strength. Stasi's head sank. He died on the spot. Die with no breath. Although he didn't know why Stasi said such words, Lin Yan was still not afraid. He said coldly, I will wait for you. Marine headquarters, Marine land. Warring States looked at the latest news in his hands, his face turned extremely ugly. There is only one sentence above. The CP0 organization was completely wiped out, and Queen Stasi of Happy Street was killed. Oh it's really amazing even the people in CP0 can't take him down. Below Sengoku, there was a man wearing a marine general's robe and a yellow suit, with sleek hair and a lewd expression on his face. He was holding a nail clipper in his hand and was constantly cutting his nails. The person who spoke was none other than Porisalino, one of the current 3 generals of the marine headquarters, who had the code name Kizaru. Although the CP0 organization is not under their jurisdiction, marine. But everyone inside is as good as 10. Especially someone as elite as Stasi. The result was unexpected. Even if they took action, they could not capture the traitor of the Whitebeard pirates. After all, it's still the power of the dark fruit. Staff officer, he crossed her fingers, and a glint flashed in her eyes as she sat on the chair. Thinking back to those days, Marine did not know how much it cost them to deal with the power in that man's hands. Never thought about it. This dark fruit reappeared on the sea. And the most important thing is, Lin Yan before getting the dark fruit and Lin Yan after getting the dark fruit are completely different concepts. From a little-known little pirate, he has now become one with a bounty of 2 billion, causing a bloody storm on the Grand Line and being known to everyone around the world. The improvement is so fast that it even reaches an incredible level. In order to avoid long nights and many dreams, they Marine must plan ahead. Once the past happens again, I'm afraid that the situation back then will happen again at their Marine headquarters. Staff officer, he will never allow such a thing to happen. She glanced towards Warring States. Warring States, we must not let Lin Yan continue to grow. Warring States thought so too, and before that, he had already received instructions from the 5 elders. I know. Oh hey, what makes me most surprised now is, why does this Lin Yan want to provoke the Tianlong people? Kizaru knew what commander he and Sengoku were afraid of. Logically speaking, for this dark fruit, Lin Yan lurked among the Whitebeard pirates for decades, even killing the captain of the 4th division of the Whitebeard pirates, and finally betrayed the Whitebeard pirates. It is not difficult to see from his various signs that Lin Yan definitely knows the special characteristics of the Anan fruit. Now that you know. So the top priority now is to lurk, hide your body, improve your strength, practice quietly, and finally come out when you have the strength to protect yourself. This is the wise choice. But what about Lin Yan's behavior? It is not an exaggeration to describe it as reverse Tian Gang. He doesn't know how to be patient or lurking, and he even acts in an extremely high-profile manner. Just betray the Whitebeard pirates. When he came up, he attacked the Tianlong people, and even worse, turned the Tianlong people into fat pigs. Such a bad influence. How could the 5 elders endure it? The wanted order for the Whitebeard pirates alone was not enough. The 5 elders also issued a kill order for Lin Yan. Both black and white are wanted at the same time. Look at the entire Grand Line. It is not said to be unprecedented, but it has not been seen in decades. I feel weird too. Staff officer, he racked his brains and couldn't figure out why Lin Yan did this. Want fame? Want profit? But what's the use of having all this if you can't save your life? No matter what he wants to do, now that CP0 has obtained Lin Yan's coordinates, which marine is the closest to him? Warring States asked. The fleet led by Flying Squirrel. Staff officer, he paused and then said, I have informed him that he is now on his way to hunt down Lin Yan. In addition, Sakasuke is not too far away from Lin Yan. As long as the Flying Squirrel can hold him down, Sakasuke will definitely be able to bring Lin Yan back. Listening to Staff He's answer, Warring States nodded. Sakasuke? That's great. While talking, Warring States put down what he was doing, put his hands behind his back, and came to the balcony next to the office. He looked at the huge square in front of him. In the center of the square was a tall and upright flagpole. The seagull flag on the flagpole was flying in the wind. In the distance is the endless sea, and the wind blowing from the sea pushes away the fog that blocks the eyes. Warring States said coldly, we must nip everything in the cradle. Chapter 28. Captain, look. After eliminating the manpower of the CP0 organization, Lin Yan took Nami on the journey. But didn't go very far. 5 warships approached their ship. How fast is a light ship arrival to a warship? Back and forth in less than a moment. Lin Yan's boat. It was already surrounded by 5 warships from 5 directions. Lin Yan said, it seems that CP0 told Marine our coordinates. On the warship, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was condescending. He stared straight at Lin Yan on the light boat below. As soon as he received the order from Marine Fando, Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel took his fleet and rushed towards the destination reported by CP0. After some searching, they finally locked the direction of Lin Yan, and this was the scene they saw now. Behind Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, thousands of elite marine troops. Everyone is wearing marine uniforms, holding weapons tightly in their hands, and maintaining combat readiness at all times. What should I do? Nami asked. Now that you're here, why don't you say hello? When surrounded by warships, Lin Yan can also use any door to leave. But him now. I don't want to use this ability. Although any door has unexpected effects. But the premise is that you are in danger. To know. Marine has the ability to collect intelligence on opponents. Once a trump card is exposed. I want to run away next time. But it may not be as easy as the first time. Still the same sentence. The opponent is not a general. Lin Yan was not panicked at all. While talking, he jumped up and turned into a stream of light, landing on the deck of the warship. The huge impact attracted the attention of many Marines present. Even Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel looked over. Staring at Lin Yan with a pair of sharp eyes, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel said, "What? Aren't you going to run away?" Lin Yan replied calmly, "I think there should be no reason to escape when dealing with Lieutenant General Yuxi." Sure enough. No wonder he dared to attack the Tianlong people. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's eyes were touched, flashing with murderous intent, and even the surrounding air condensed a bit. He put his hand on the sword at his waist, ready to draw the sword at any time to give the opponent a fatal blow. Honestly. For the celestial dragons. Let alone ordinary people. Even many Marines don't have much favorable impressions. Especially a person like Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel who is relatively upright and willing to ask for orders for the people. Although Lin Yan did something outrageous. But it also caught his attention. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel said, "Because you are very interested in me, I can give you a chance to capture you without any effort, and I will take you to Malinfando." Lin Yan chuckled, "Why are you so attracted to me? Are you also unhappy with the Tianlong people?" Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was shocked, and then he narrowed his eyes and glanced at Marine behind him. "Just think about some things in your mind. If you speak out, especially in public, you will easily be criticized verbally and in writing. Especially behind Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel. There are also thousands of Marines present. As a Marine who staunchly protects the celestial dragons, we will definitely not let the situation develop like this." Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel said, "Since you are unwilling, then I have no choice but to invite you over." The long sword was unsheathed and silver light flashed. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel himself was a strong swordsman. Having been immersed in this industry for many years, his strength is naturally extraordinary. The sword struck out, and the sharp sword light came straight towards Lin Yan. Lin Yan disappeared instantly, only to hear a bang, and the deck exploded. Seeing this scene, Lin Yan calmed down a little. After all, he is still Lieutenant General Marine. Look at Marine. His strength is only second to that of a general. As soon as the expert takes action, he will know if there is any. No need to think about it. This is a tough opponent. No wonder CP0 is no match for you. Come again. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was surprised when he saw that Lin Yan actually kept up with his speed and avoided his fatal blow. After the first attack failed, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel attacked again. He had just avoided the blow, but before he could let Lin Yan steady his body, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel had already killed him. The long knife struck Lin Yan's neck. If you fail to dodge, this knife will definitely kill you. In an instant. Elementalization is on. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's long knife passed through Lin Yan's body. Elementalization. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was shocked, but he had forgotten that Lin Yan was a Logia Devil Fruit user. After many years of fierce fighting on the sea, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel naturally knows how to resolve the elementalization. With a wave of one arm, a layer of dark-armed domineering energy clung to the long sword. At the same time, a red light flashed in his eyes, and his domineering energy was activated. It is both armament and knowledge, combined with Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's unrivaled swordsmanship. At this moment, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel has entered his peak state. The lion fights the rabbit with all his strength. Facing Lin Yan, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel showed no signs of neglect. Watch this scene. Lin Yan nodded secretly. As expected of Lieutenant General Marine, he is truly a formidable opponent. Certainly. Now that we are on the warship, Lin Yan also has his own confidence. On strength. Even facing the General Lin Yan, he has the strength to fight. What's more, it's just a Lieutenant General. After Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel entered his peak state, Lin Yan also released his colors after seeing and hearing them, armed with them. Whoa! It's too late, it's fast. It was Lin Yan's turn to start to attack. Suck! In Lin Yan's hand, a vortex appeared. The vortex has full gravity on it. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel lost control of his body and flew in the direction of Lin Yan. What? After all, he is a strong man who has been crossing the sea for many years. Not only did Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel not panic, but he stabilized his body and actually took advantage of Lin Yan's suction power to step on moonwalk at an even faster speed than before and slashed towards Lin Yan with his sword. Facing Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's slashing attack, Lin Yan did not hesitate at all and punched out. Fists and swords met. The scene was like beating a drum, and the harsh sound suddenly resounded throughout the entire deck. The shock waves swept over the surrounding area one after another like a tide. Lin Yan and Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel were like opposing waves, neither giving in to the other. However, just then, on Lin Yan's arm, scarlet lightning suddenly appeared, and the red light was very dazzling. This is... The moment he saw the scarlet lightning, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's expression finally changed. He is so experienced, why doesn't he know what this is? Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel shouted, Conqueror's Entanglement. Yes. Lin Yan used it. It's Conqueror's dominance. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was shocked, he could not imagine anything. Lin Yan in front of me, this once unknown guy, who was completely inconspicuous in the Whitebeard pirates, has mastered Conqueror's hackiness that no one among millions of people has possessed. Look to the New World. There are very few people who possess Conqueror's haki. If you insist on bringing Ming-Ji, Kaido, Red Hair, Whitebeard and others together and say that Conqueror's is domineering everywhere, then just pretend that I didn't say that. The main thing is, these people with Conqueror's arrogance have all become the top strong men in the New World. Having Conqueror's domineering power is not to mention invincible. But it is also the dividing line between the strong and the peak strong. At least, for now. This is an ability that Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel simply cannot master. This is also the reason why he has been stuck in this level so far and has been unable to move forward. Boom. The moment Conqueror's dominance appears, especially after seeing Lin Yan use Ba Tang so skillfully, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel also knew that he was no match for Lin Yan. The unparalleled impact passed over Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's long knife and hit him hard on the head. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel is in pain, and his body is like a kite with its string broken. With one punch, he broke through the decks behind him and fell into the sea. The sea water splashed all over the sky. Chapter 29. Lieutenant General. Isn't it? Lieutenant General, he actually lost. This. Watching Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel crash into the sea, Marine present felt a huge wave of emotion in his heart. The Lieutenant General is not as strong as the Marine Admiral, not as good as the General, not as good as the Fleet Admiral, not as good as many people. Even on the sea, it just acts as a green leaf and becomes a background for others to show off. Many pirates on the sea can easily handle it. But at the end of the day, that's only for a very small number of people. Put in front of the 4 emperors and Shishibukai, the Lieutenant General may indeed be unqualified. But for Lin Yan and other ordinary little pirates, the word Lieutenant General Marine is a hurdle they can't overcome at all. The General is strong. Looking at it, there are only 3 Marines. The reason why Marine is where it is today. In addition to the Fleet Admiral as the leader, the Lieutenant General is the mainstay of Marine, and the Lieutenant General is one of the most important combat forces of Marine. And the strength of Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel is very high among the entire ranks of Lieutenant Generals. To put it bluntly, even when facing a general, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel also has the power to challenge. He is a master of swordsmanship and is ranked among the best in the world. But now, this scene in front of me. But Marine present was stunned. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, who has an absolute position among the Marines, has been fighting on the sea for many years, and has reached the current level with his absolute strength. He actually lost. He was defeated by this guy who had just betrayed the Whitebeard pirates, a guy who had worked hard for the Whitebeard pirates for decades without making any achievements. Information about Lin Yan. Especially after he took action against the Tianlong people. Not to mention the other pirates in the New World, who among them knows about Marine. However, just such a person. In less than a few dozen rounds, the mainstay of their Marine headquarters was killed. Many Marines looked at each other. From each other's eyes, they saw shock. The most important thing is, the eyes of the masses are sharp. Although the Marine present was not as strong as Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, he had seen the battles between those strong men, and the fights were bloody, and even caused the sky to crack. Lin Yan just used the ability. They also fell into their eyes one after another. Conquerors domineering. I never thought that this guy already possesses such a unique ability. Suddenly, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's defeat didn't seem so unbearable. But more. All Marine had doubts in his mind again. Marine information states, Lin Yan has made no achievements in the Whitebeard pirates. He has made no progress in decades of hard work. His talent is so poor that even the Whitebeard pirates cannot bear to look at him. In order to obtain the dark fruit, he assassinated Sachi, the captain of the 4th Division of the Whitebeard pirates, and betrayed the Whitebeard pirates. This move aroused the public outrage of the Whitebeard pirates, and a reward of 1 billion vellay was placed on the head. Lin Yan's current strength is unknown. Etc. Now, people present could not help but question this information. A person with conqueror's domination, you tell me that he has poor talent? Besides, even if the talent is poor, don't you guys from the Whitebeard pirates have any eyesight? This is a man with conqueror's hackiness. Once it is in your hands, let alone treat it as a treasure, at least cultivate it well, right? What's the result? Just throw it away? What a waste of resources. While the Marines lamented that the Whitebeard pirates were ignorant of current affairs, they also had doubts about the information posted above. It seems the credibility of the information released by Marine in the future will have to be lowered again. Back to business. Those present were divided into 2 groups. One group was concerned about the safety of the flying squirrel, so they jumped off the deck, got into the sea, and rescued the flying squirrel. The other group directly drew out their long swords and rushed towards Lin Yan. Although Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was defeated, they still had thousands of Marines and they had not yet taken action. Looking at Marine who was about to attack, Lin Yan doesn't intend to drag it on any longer. But I saw him pressing his hand on the deck. The power of the dark fruit was ignited in his hands. Lin Yan said, Dark A Cup Ointment Path. In an instant, the dark aura started from Lin Yan and spread out to the surroundings. Not only did it cover the entire warship, but even the nearby sea became extremely dark, as if falling into a black hole, and all the colors in the world were covered by the black aura. The Marines looked at the darkness under their feet, and at the same time, their bodies fell uncontrollably into the darkness. Whether it is a warship or other objects. Under this darkness full of infinite power, they didn't even have a chance to resist. Back and forth in less than a few breaths. 5 warships, including all Marine soldiers on board, were all swallowed up by the dark fruit. Lin Yan's eyes were like icebergs without a trace of emotion. His hands made a gesture of holding up the sky, and he shouted, Liberation! The power faded like a tide, and various broken limbs fell from the sky above Lin Yan's head. Looking closely, it was the 5 warships that were swallowed up by the dark fruit before, as well as the thousands of Marine soldiers. Boom! The broken limbs of the damaged warship hit the sea, and the sea made waves of waves. Iron plates, sawdust, rollers, masts, and pieces of warships were everywhere. There are rough waves under the ocean, but above the sea level there is a dead silence. And Lin Yan returned to his ship. In Nami's shocked eyes, he patted her shoulder, let's go. Oh well. Nami drove the boat and quickly left the sea. Chapter 30. Marine Headquarters. As the battle report from Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel came over, the whole office fell into silence. Flying Squirrel, he actually lost. Staff, he never expected that she would send Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel to arrest Lin Yan. Not to mention defeating him, as long as he could be kept and wait for Akainu to arrive, everything would be settled. Unexpectedly, less than half a day had passed. The news of Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's defeat came without a word. For the Flying Squirrel, not to mention Commander He, even the Warring States period was very relieved. Lin Yan's reward is high. But that's based on touching the Tianlong people's cake. After all, at least in the eyes of Warring States and Commander He, Lin Yan's strength is not worthy of this reward. But what is the result now? Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was no match for him. It was written clearly on the battle report. Not only did Lin Yan defeat Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel with lightning speed, but he also sank the 5 warships that came with him, as well as the thousands of Marines on them. The warships turned into a ball of scrap metal and sank into the sea. Such a battle report frightened Commander He, and Warring States was also frightened. They suddenly had an intuition. The rise of this dark fruit. It came too soon. It's so fast that they can't stop it. How long has it been since this guy got the dark fruit? 2 months? 3 months? From being unknown before, he was able to defeat their headquarters Marine Vice Admiral in a blink of an eye, sinking 5 warships and all the Marines on them. This cultivation speed is thousands of miles per day. Looking at the past, they have never heard of it. Even the One Piece Roger back then was nothing more than this. Oh hey, that's really awesome. Kizaru put down the battle report in his hand and leaned on the chair, as if he didn't care about anything, with a calm expression as usual. Sengoku immediately turned his attention to staff. It's too late to think about it, tell Akainu the news, he knows how to do it. Staff officer he nodded, I understand. At the same time, the other side of the sea. Akainu, who has already received the information, is already on his way to the destination of Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel. However, just then, above the deck of the warship, a Marine colonel walked up with a solemn face. Admiral, there is news from Fleet Admiral. I hope you can listen to it. Right in front of the colonel was a man wearing a Marine general's robe, a white Marine hat with a red lining, a cigar in his mouth, and a rose on his chest. His rough and arrogant aura made people afraid to approach him. Even the colonel came to him under great pressure. Yes. This man is a man who will never allow a trace of evil to exist in Marine. In order to complete the mission at all costs, even his colleagues and the public will become his target of annihilation. He is a man who is upright, cruel, merciless, and an iron-blooded soldier. Pursuing complete justice, Sakasuke, codenamed Akainu, is currently one of the 3 generals of Marine headquarters. What's the matter? With a hoarse voice, Sakasuke turned his head indifferently. Yes, it's about Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel. Just a look made the colonel not only take half a step back, but he answered bravely. Soon. News about the defeat of Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel reached Sakasuke's ears. Waste. Sakasuke's face was ferocious, and his expression was particularly unhappy. Even a small pirate can't hold it. This Flying Squirrel. The more I live, the more I go back. The colonel lowered his head. I didn't dare to talk to him at all. How long will it take to reach the destination? Sakasuke asked coldly. General, A&D. There are still 20 minutes to go, replied the colonel. Too slow. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's goal was to hold Lin Yan back. Now the mission failed. If I don't arrive in time, I don't know if I will have to wait until the next time I find Lin Yan. For Sakasuke, no pirate can escape from the palm of his hand. Boom. The words just fell. But he saw Sakasuke rising into the sky in front of him. Magma enveloped his body, and the temperature of the air rose steadily. With a blazing flame, Sakasuke ran rapidly on the sea. General. Seeing Sakasuke walking away into the sea, the colonel couldn't help but shrink his pupils. As a user with devil fruit abilities, would you risk your life by being so reckless? But as the person in charge of the warship, the colonel can only urge the people below, everyone, move forward at full speed. The warship was at full throttle. Chase in the direction of Sakasuke. Sitting on the boat, Lin Yan felt a little uneasy. Ever since Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was dealt with, this thought has become more and more serious. Suddenly, Lin Yan suddenly stood up from the boat and looked towards the sea. The next moment, a crimson figure, carrying lava all over the sky, the lava sank into the sea behind him, splashing boundless water vapor, and monstrous flames, like a shooting star coming straight at him, flying at high speed, with a long tail fin. Sakasuke's figure appeared in Lin Yan's sight. That guy is. The moment he saw Sakasuke, Lin Yan's expression also changed. He finally knew why he was uneasy. Marine General. Coming. It's time to say it or not. Marine really thinks highly of himself. The person coming is not Aokiji who lets loose, nor Kizaru who fishes for fish, but Akainu. There is no need to say much about Akainu's style. Complete justice. No pirate can escape from his hands. After seeing Lin Yan's ship, Sakasuke didn't leave any way for the other party to survive. The flames on his fist were ignited, carrying endless magma. The high temperature of the magma made the sea begin to show signs of restlessness. Locking Lin Yan's ship, Sakasuke shouted, "Big fire!" The lava condensed together and turned into a huge fist, like a volcanic eruption, with huge power and roaring waves. With one punch, the sea was divided. Before they even got close, the fierce impact was already about to melt Lin Yan's boat. For a moment, the dark fruit, armed color haki, and Lin Yan's various abilities soared to the limit. Dark water. A vortex appeared on his arm. There is no landing place on the sea. As the only mount, this light ship cannot be destroyed by Sakazuki. Lin Yan resisted Akainu's attack. One side is rockberry fruit, and the other side is dark fruit. The moment the two collided together, Lin Yan only felt that his arms were numb, his jaws were shaken, his bones were almost falling apart, and his internal organs were almost displaced. The boat under his feet was directly pushed back for 1,000 meters, and then he managed to stabilize his body. Lin Yan's face was solemn. He felt the pain as if his body had been hit by a huge stone. Just a simple punch, and he and the boat were pushed back thousands of meters. Although he withstood Sakazuki's blow, it still made Lin Yan's heart tremble violently. How powerful is this? Such a shocking scene, how could Lin Yan not make waves in his heart? Marine General. It truly lives up to its reputation. Lin Yan finally learned the lesson today. Although it can challenge the general, that is due to the existence of the Any Gate and the Immortal Bean. The premise is that the opponent is Aokiji, or Kizaru who fishes and clocks in. For someone like Akainu who doesn't give his opponent a chance to survive, Lin Yan has absolutely no chance of winning. Lin Yan looked around. It's not easy to escape from the hands of a general, especially Akainu. Look. Gotta use any door. After one blow, Sakazuki's face was indifferent, and the magma in his hand was dripping. Under his feet is the rock formed by the condensation of magma and water. The sea breeze roared by, and the robe behind him kept rolling and dancing. Sakazuki stepped on the lava and approached Lin Yan step by step. Chapter 31. Seeing Lin Yan looking around, how could Sakazuki not know what the other person was thinking? Such a situation. He had seen it in too many pirates. Sakazuki sneered, "Do you think you can escape? It's hard to say whether I can leave or not." After obtaining the arbitrary door, Lin Yan also tried how to use it. If you don't have full confidence, Lin Yan definitely would not be as calm as he was now. The effect of any door starts at frame 0. As long as you use it, you can escape almost instantly. No matter how strong Sakazuki is, Lin Yan can also be confident. The other party didn't even have a chance to touch me. However, just when Lin Yan was about to show any door directly and not get entangled with the Marine General in front of him, suddenly, at this moment, there was movement in the system. It was detected that the host encountered the Marine General and is issuing a temporary mission. Temporary mission, wrestle with Marine General. Request, as a famous pirate with a bounty of 2 billion on the sea, how can you just back down when encountering a Marine General? Host, please resist for more than 30 rounds during the fight with Sakazuki. Reward, A-level lottery. The moment the system task is released, Lin Yan couldn't help but open his mouth. What the hell? No, just because you don't want your life in the system doesn't mean I don't want my life. With one punch, his body almost fell apart, and the people and the boat were driven back thousands of meters. This is just the result of a face-to-face encounter. You want me to carry it for 30 rounds? Who can bear this? Lin Yan felt very uncomfortable, just like Lin Daiyu uprooting a weeping willow tree or Guo Jingming dunking on Yao Ming. But now that the mission is out, Lin Yan would naturally not miss it. I have never received an A-level reward so far. Moreover, it's just 30 rounds, not necessary to defeat Akainu. For Lin Yan, this is not impossible. Think of this. Lin Yan pressed a hand on the sea, and the dark acupuncture points were released. The power of darkness rose from the ground, and the sea was directly shrouded in darkness. Stepping on the dark acupoints, Lin Yan was able to gain a foothold on the sea for a short time. While letting Nami stay away for a while, he faced off against Akainu alone. Looking at the oncoming Lin Yan, Sakazuki snorted, "You are a pretty good pirate, at least you dare to stand in front of me." Lin Yan tensed his nerves and said without squinting, "Speaking of which, I also want to try General Marine's strength." "Want to try my strength?" Hearing this, Sakazuki smiled instead of getting angry. "I don't know how many years have passed, but I still hear such words. I don't know if the new star pirate in front of me is not afraid of tigers, or if he is really that ignorant." Dark Hound. Sakazuki took the lead in attacking, the rock berries exploded violently, and the scarlet light was particularly dazzling. At this moment, magma flows down, and violent steam evaporates from the sea level in the thick white smoke. Like the master of the sea, Sakazuki's arm turned into a line of lava and struck Lin Yan's head. Lin Yan definitely would not let Sakazuki wreak havoc, and quickly dodged in the dark A-cup ointment. But, as a marine general, Sakazuki is so fast. Just as he raised his feet, Sakazuki was already in front of Lin Yan. Punch out! Lin Yan was pushed back another 1,000 meters. This punch was even harder than before. The majestic impact made Lin Yan almost unable to withstand it. The arms were even covered with lava, and the skin was burning and painful. Not waiting for him to take a breath, Sakazuki came to him again. Big fire breathing. The strong and powerful wind was like a huge mountain. Lin Yan could not avoid it and received Akainu's punch firmly. He was knocked out again, and his whole body seemed to be floating on water. He rolled several times on the sea like a dragonfly touching the water. Thanks to the critical moment, Lin Yan opened the dark A-cup ointment under his feet. Otherwise, you will have to fall into the sea. But even so, Lin Yan also felt it clearly. Several of his bones have been broken. A hint of bright red flowed out of his mouth unconsciously. The injuries inside his body were like bullets exploding inside. The pain was unbearable and he was extremely embarrassed. Other side. Sakazuki's warship arrived belatedly. On the warship, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, his subordinates, and Sakazuki's subordinates were all on it. Although Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was thrown into the sea by Lin Yan, he luckily escaped the warship being dismembered by him. The marine soldiers who jumped into the sea to rescue the Flying Squirrel also saved their lives. It happened that Sakazuki's warship passed by and fished them out too. Everyone had just arrived in a warship. Where it enters the eye. This is the scene where Akainu hits Lin Yan with a mountain of magma. Lin Yan, on the other hand, fled in panic under Akainu's offensive. Even they were stunned to see the monstrous flames. He had previously lost to Lin Yan. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel and the subordinates behind him, everyone was holding a breath in their hearts. Being a marine, fighting with pirates is a common occurrence. Even if you encounter stronger pirates, there is no shame in losing. The point is, Lin Yan was just an unknown member of the Whitebeard pirates. He happened to betray the Whitebeard pirates and attack the celestial dragons, so he had a reward of 2 billion. In other words, the other party is just opportunistic, and this is the chance to reach the top in one step. Facing such an opponent, not only did he not succeed in taking down the opponent, even the tasks assigned by the superiors could not be completed even if they delayed the opponent. This trip, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel knew he was embarrassed. Not only did he lose his own face, he also lost the face of the entire Marine Lieutenant General. Fortunately, with Sakazuki's shot, I believe it won't be long. Then they can take Lin Yan's body back to take his life. Unlike Kizaru and Aokiji, Akainu will never allow any pirate to escape from his grasp. And the reality is just as they thought. From meeting to now, Akainu only punched 3 times. 3 punches almost destroyed him. Lin Yan also realized that he had underestimated Sakazuki's strength. Distance is great. Distance from Sakazuki, the top strong man in this new world. I am still far, far behind. The system requires that you persist for 30 rounds. Now let alone 10 rounds, he would almost fall apart with 3 punches. Thanks to the tasks issued by the system, there is no penalty even if you fail. If not, God knows how badly he will be beaten. Look. There is no way I can handle the rewards I get from this mission. Of course. This idea is just a thought. Lin Yan now. But he was not completely defeated. He didn't want to miss the reward of this temporary mission. Everyone is greedy, and so is Lin Yan. He still has a trump card. He still has the ability to give it a try. He has not yet reached the point of recovery. He was really thinking about how to defeat the Marine General in front of him. Any door. That is the last ability that can be used, the trump card among trump cards. At this moment, it's not the time yet. Think of this. Another item obtained in the previous lottery appeared in Lin Yan's hands. It was a bean that was green but exuded a ray of golden light. Chapter 32. It looked like he was able to withstand 3 of his own punches. The contempt in Sakazuki's eyes disappeared a lot. Being able to do this is worthy of Marine's high reward. But that's all. Just when Sakazuki was ready to take a step further, suddenly, But his eyes noticed the bean that Lin Yan took out. Beans? In this scene where the smell of gunpowder is on the verge of igniting. Suddenly I took out a bean, what does it mean? Not to mention Sakazuki, even Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel and the Marines who were watching from the distant warship were stunned. Lin Yan raised his head and swallowed the fairy beans directly. In an instant, he only felt a warm current flowing into his body. The sluggish muscles everywhere began to recover, the bones began to reshape, and the injuries in the body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. He looked embarrassed just now, but after taking fairy beans, he looked completely new in the blink of an eye. As one of Marine's 3 generals, he is the top player in the new world. How vicious is Sakazuki's vision? Why couldn't he see that all Lin Yan's injuries had recovered in a short period of time? This scene. Even Sakazuki couldn't help but frown, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. What kind of people has he not encountered on the sea? It's not like he hasn't fought against Supernova, Shishibukai, and even New World's 4 emperors. But no matter who it is, never before had Lin Yan recovered all his physical strength and injuries at lightning speed. And the most important thing is, that's just an item the size of a bean. Although Sakazuki was decisive in killing, he was also suffocated by the effectiveness of the fairy beans. That's it now. Lin Yan found that Sakazuki was lost in thought for a long time. Realization dawned on him. This is currently my only chance to defeat my opponent. Although his speed is not as fast as that of Sakazuki, he is still far faster than the ordinary Marine Lieutenant General. What's more, Lin Yan is now maximizing all his abilities. Between minutes and seconds, Lin Yan had already arrived in front of Sakazuki. At exactly this second, Sakazuki was once again surprised by the effectiveness of the fairy beans. He was off guard and had no time to resist. It can be said that Lin Yan took advantage of the right time and place. But Sakazuki is Sakazuki. The moment Lin Yan took action, he also came to his senses immediately. Heroist. Sakazuki was furious, so what if he regained his strength? In the face of absolute strength, even if you are a dragon, you have to get down. While talking, the magma in his hand condensed again, and Sakazuki's punch was more explosive than all previous attacks. Good opportunity. The distance between Lin Yan and Sakazuki was less than 1 meter. Seeing Sakazuki take the initiative to punch, a vortex appeared on his hand, and Lin Yan shouted, "Dark water!" Fist to palm. A scene that shocked Sakazuki appeared. His rockberry fruits are fading at an extremely fast speed. Without the magma, the fruit's ability disappears out of thin air. Even the rising high temperature around them receded like a tide in an instant. What? Sakazuki's expression also changed. In addition to being able to elementalize and absorb all substances, the dark fruit also has a more important ability, which is to eliminate the opponent's fruit ability. In the midst of war, Blackbeard relied on this ability to withstand the fatal blow from Whitebeard's shock fruit. With all his efforts, Whitebeard saved his life. Likewise, Lin Yan also used the special characteristics of the dark fruit to eliminate Sakazuki's rock fruit. The dark fruit's ability to eliminate the opponent's fruit is indeed abnormal. But there is also a very significant drawback. That is when the hand must touch the opponent. Exactly. At this moment, for the second that Akainu was lost in thought, Lin Yan did it. Without the devil fruit, the general's strength would be at least somewhat weakened, if not downgraded. Sakazuki noticed this scene and became furious. You don't really think that you can defeat me by eliminating my devil fruit, do you? Say it. Raising his thick fist, Sakazuki punched him again. Why did Sakazuki become a general? Are you really relying on devil fruit? Apparently not. Even without rock berries, Sakazuki's roots are still here. The style of the punch was not much worse than before. Even because of being too angry, Sakazuki's strength has not diminished but increased. After Lin Yan narrowly avoided it, he said, "You are overthinking it. I don't expect to rely on the ability of the dark fruit to defeat you in a head-on fight." Speaking of which, a smile appeared on Lin Yan's lips. Looking at Sakazuki, he sneered, "General, this time, I won." Drop this sentence. Lin Yan grabbed Sakazuki's arm with one hand. Miraculously, he jumped directly into the sea. This is the rhythm that will drag Sakazuki into the sea. Are you crazy? The moment he saw Lin Yan's actions, Sakazuki finally lost his previous pride and couldn't help but become moved. As a devil fruit user, how could Sakazuki not know about Tianqi's stuff? But the problem is, It's true that you are a devil fruit user, so aren't you a devil fruit user? Pull yourself into the sea. Don't you want your life? Moreover, not far away, their marine warships are still standing there. Even if the two fell into the sea at the same time, how could marine on the warship sit idly by and ignore them? After they fished themselves and Lin Yan out, Lin Yan still couldn't escape the fate of being captured by their marine. If you're not crazy, how can I take down marine general like you? At the moment when Sakaski's fruit ability was swallowed up and the opponent's strength was weakened, Lin Yan pulled Sakaski and jumped into the sea. Only two sounds were heard from the sea. Lin Yan and Sakaski both entered the sea. The scene was still raging just now. It suddenly became quiet. Sakaski was stunned by Lin Yan's crazy behavior. Actually, on the warship nearby, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was watching the battle, as well as the thousands of marines present. Isn't this the case? Watching Lin Yan dragging their general Akainu into the sea, everyone's face showed unprecedented shock. This general? No, this guy, what is he doing? Jumping into the sea? Isn't he also a devil fruit user? Did General Akainu push him into a panic, or did he already have such an idea? Crazy, crazy, this guy is crazy. Two devil fruit users entered the sea at the same time, but this pirate still couldn't escape and was caught by us. What was he thinking? Stop talking, hurry up and rescue the general. Thump thump. A group of marines jumped into the sea one after another and swam towards the direction where Sakaski and Lin Yan fell into the water. On deck, as the only lieutenant general present, after seeing this scene, the flying squirrel couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and the shock in his eyes could not be dissipated for a long time. Although Lin Yan will still be caught in the end. But it's undeniable. This fight. It was their general who was defeated. General, defeated. They all knew these words, but when combined together, even Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel felt strange. Forget it if it's New World's 4 emperors. This Lin Yan is just a fledgling pirate. Able to do this. You can guess it without even thinking. If he is allowed to develop like this, there will definitely be a place for him at the top of the world in the future. And setting foot on the so-called highest peak is only a matter of time. It's a pity. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel looked at the sea in front of him and shook his head. After all, he is still young and energetic. When someone with devil fruit abilities falls into the water, their fate is obvious. There are also layers of containment from their marines. I don't think this guy can escape. The great prison on the dark seabed is his final destination. Just as Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was waiting for news about marine salvage, another piece of shocking news came. A marine ran up to him and hurriedly reported, "Lieutenant General, that pirate Lin Yan, he gone." Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel suddenly looked sideways. How is that possible? Chapter 33. What did you say? Sakaski also lost. Malinfando, Fleet Admiral Office. Warring States listened to the report about Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel in the phone bug, and he suddenly stood up from the table. Not to mention how shocked it was on his face. Who is Sakaski? The general of their headquarters. The 3 top combat powers in Marine. With such terrifying strength, even the 4 emperors are unwilling to confront him head-on. Logically speaking, this time Marine's encirclement and suppression of Lin Yan. It's not an exaggeration to describe it as a sure thing. It was Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel who led thousands of marines and 5 warships, and General Marine himself went to seize him with his troops. In this battle, not to mention ordinary pirates, even the group of Shishibukai and 4 emperors had to fight 3 times. What's the result? Akainu not only failed to catch Lin Yan, but that was it. Even he himself was defeated by the other party. Isn't this Lin Yan a little pirate? Where did he get the strength to be able to fight against Akainu without losing? If Sengoku hadn't known Flying Squirrel well, he had always been upright and loyal to Marine. He even once wondered if the Flying Squirrel had taken the wrong medicine today. This. Also shocked was Staff Officer He who was standing by. She couldn't even hold the tea firmly in her hand, and a lot of it spilled on the table. She also couldn't feel at ease. The last time this happened, I don't know how long ago it was. It can make even generals fall into disgrace. This is not the case when encountering a force like the 4 emperors that can compete with the entire marine. Pirate Lin Yan. Regarding the strength of this guy. Look. They misjudged too many. Oh hey, it's so awesome. Has Akainu all been defeated? Although Kizaru said he didn't care, he secretly remembered the name in his heart. If Marine lets him deal with this guy someday. You have to find an excuse in advance. Next to Kizaru, Garp also came here for the first time, holding a bag of senbei in his hand. Listening to the voice on the phone, he couldn't help but frown. Sakazuki should. You won't underestimate the enemy. There is no need to say much about Akainu's behavior. Either don't take action, or once you take action, you will fight to the death. In such a situation, he rarely shows off on purpose. However, even so, Akainu still lost. Garp was chewing senbei, and he couldn't help but sigh that the pirates of this generation are a bit ridiculously strong. Next, warring states began to call bugs to inquire about the situation at the scene. The flying squirrel briefly described it. When he learned that Lin Yan actually took Sakazuki and jumped directly into the sea. As soon as this statement came out, Sengoku, he, Garp, Kizaru and others all froze in place. Jump into the sea? Zhangguo was speechless for a long time, then said, "Are you sure?" The flying squirrel replied, "I saw it with my own eyes." Sengoku and he looked at each other. Seemingly, if the pirate Lin Yan can really bring down Sakazuki, it seems that this is the only way. No wonder Sakazuki lost. This is not a fair loss. It's just, isn't this guy also a devil fruit user? Staff officer, he asked. I also find it strange that the scene has been blocked by our marine. But even so, Lin Yan still escaped from our hands. Sakazuki has been fished out, but Lin Yan has yet to see any trace. Inside the phone bug, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel responded. This side of the warring states period. Garp, Crane and others couldn't help but take a breath. Unexpectedly, he didn't admit that pirate Lin Yan's spirit was extremely powerful. The same devil fruit user pulled Sakazuki into the sea. With this madness, there are not many people to be found in this sea. By the way, you said Sakazuki was injured. Warring states recalled the flying squirrel's report at the beginning. Well, there is a dagger stuck in the chest, and it is almost close to the heart. Fortunately, Sakazuki is fine and has been treated on the ship, the flying squirrel replied. While Sakazuki fell into the water, Lin Yan gave him a knife. They are all powerful men at the level of generals. The blood bars are thick like barcodes. Of course you won't die so easily. Only, this knife is not very lethal. But it's extremely insulting. Especially now that Lin Yan has not fully grown up. Start today. It is estimated that this will be an indelible stain on Sakazuki's military career from now on. Warring states paused for a long time, and finally let out a long sigh. That's all, come back first. Outside world. There is no airtight wall in the world. Regarding Lin Yan making such a big noise on the Grand Route. In particular, he stabbed the Tianlong people in their nests and trampled the Tianlong people's faces to the ground. It can be said, people all over the world are paying attention to this newcomer who betrayed the Whitebeard pirates, and even more concerned about how Marine will deal with this newcomer next. Soon, the results of the battle between Marine and Lin Yan are out. I thought it was Lin Yan who was running away with his head in his arms being chased by Marine, trembling under the general's lewd power. Unexpectedly, the moment the newspaper was published. Anyone who sees the news. The eye-catching red letters above. Every reader who read the newspaper couldn't help but stop breathing for a second. Then everyone couldn't help but rub their eyes. Make sure you are not mistaken. Newspaper above, no one thought that Marine was encircling and suppressing the desperado Lin Yan, and even dispatched General Marine, and the final result turned out to be like this, right below the title. It was a few large characters that took up a quarter of the newspaper space. Marine General Akainu defeated. Sabayati Islands. In an ordinary pub. After the newspaper was delivered, boiling sounds started one after another. Oh my god, is this true? That arrogant Akainu actually lost, and also lost to such a newcomer. Are you kidding yourself? That's General Marine, one of the most powerful warriors in the Marine headquarters. How could he be defeated? I will never believe it. What kind of newspaper is this Tao Xiao newspaper? It was really written by Cunner, right? I don't believe it either. This is nonsense. That's Akainu, not some Kizaru guy who clocks in and gets off work. If he loses, where is the general's face? Where is Marine's face? No, this may be true, haven't you noticed? If it was the same group of rumor-mongering media in the past, Marine would have come out to refute the rumors now, instead of remaining silent like now. By the way, this is still about Akainu and Marine's face, but the problem is that there is really no movement at all from Marine Fando. No, is this true? Did Akainu really lose? And to such a rebel party of the Whitebeard pirates. This pirate Lin Yan, how did he do it? He just ran away without being chased by Marine, but he ended up break down all the generals. Before, many people laughed at the fact that the Whitebeard pirates had such a huge foundation that they would run out instead of staying under the tree to enjoy the shade. Now it seems that if this devil fruit can really elevate him to this level, if it were me, I would probably have to betray the Whitebeard pirates. It seems that another pirate is about to rise. Inside the tavern, all the voices of discussion continued. Some people are doubting the authenticity of these newspapers, while others are lamenting that Marine has messed up. But more importantly, it was the group of pirates who were bullied by Marine, especially those who were overwhelmed by Akainu's terrifying coercion. Seeing Akainu in such a mess, they all felt unprecedentedly happy in their hearts. And Lin Yan's popularity. After the Tianlong turmoil and the defeat of the general of Marine headquarters, he has reached the top of the world. He is a person who is passed down by word of mouth, chatted with after meals, and is popular with everyone. Not one in the short term. Chapter 34. New World. Dressrosa. As the head of a country, among the Dongquixote family, on the throne in the main hall, there is a flamingo costume, a pair of sunglasses, orange hair, full of rebellious atmosphere, legs crossed, singing and dancing below, Doflamingo with a grin on his face. He let out a laugh of her in Doflamingo's hand, he held a newspaper. In the newspaper, there was news about the defeat of General Akainu. I never expected that there would be such a talent in the Whitebeard pirates. Under the sunglasses, with the shining cold light, Doflamingo added, it would be great if such a person could be used by me, young, have strength, and capable. Such people are very popular anywhere in the world. Doflamingo is no exception. Who cares that there is such a powerful thug underneath? Torpal had a long nose and sat under Doflamingo. He said, Brother Ming, do you want us to issue an invitation letter to him? In his current situation, if he can get a shelter, I believe I will be totally devoted to you, Brother Ming. Doflamingo shook his head. You would think, with the noise this guy is making now, who can protect him? Besides, people like him will not join us. The red-haired pirates. This little guy can really make a scene. Shanks leaned against the mast, his black skin chirping in the sea breeze, and he held a wine bottle in his hand. In front of Shanks, a group of red-haired pirate crew members were drinking wine around a campfire. Yes. They are having a party. Unexpectedly, in the middle of the banquet, news about Lin Yan came through. Even though it has reached the level of New World 4 emperors, after seeing this news, many people present still choked on their drinks. No matter what, Sakisuke was regarded by their red-haired group as someone they couldn't mess with. He has titles such as Marine General, Marine's strongest combat power, etc. Not to mention the other crew members, even their captain Shanks had to brace himself 200% when encountering him. What's the result? A man like him miraculously lost to a rookie pirate. This is no longer a deed that can be described as a shame or a shame. It's like riding on top of their marines' heads to run wild. The more I look at it, the more absurd it becomes, and the more I look at it, the more funny it becomes. Of course. It was also indispensable for them to laugh at Sakisuke without reservation. At the same time, there is another powerful pirate in this session. Boss, do you think if we wait until this guy comes to New World, should we? Just then, Jesus came up with an idea. How sharp is Shanks? I knew what Jesus Bulletin wanted to say right away. He shook his head. No matter how strong he is, we can't invite him to join our pirate group. At least, we have to see what Whitebeard says first. Jesus Bulletin, Lachilu, and others nodded. Just like their current friendship between the red-haired pirates and the Whitebeard pirates. As it should be. Other side. This is the Big Mom pirates. News and newspapers about Lin Yan also came to Cake Island smoothly. Well, this Sakaski is really getting better and better with each passing day. He can't even take down a small pirate. The ant poured the wine in her hand down her throat and immediately laughed loudly. Under the ant, all the crew members also smiled. Even the 4 emperors have been greatly affected by what Akainu is doing on the sea. They don't have a good attitude towards Marine at all. Especially since it was Akainu who suffered the defeat this time. Not to mention how happy they felt. A large number of wine jars were opened and countless bottles of wine were brought up. Everyone started drinking heavily to celebrate Marine's defeat. Katakuri, do you think we should recruit Lin Yan? Smoothie, one of the 3 generals, looked at Katakuri and asked. It depends on my mother's opinion on this, but it's better not to have any contact with someone like this who rebels against the party. Katakuri expressed his opinion. Speaking of which, I think the whitebeard pirates are a little strange. Wasn't there a lot of wanted notices flying all over the place before? Why is there suddenly no movement now? Smoothie asked again. I don't know about this. Katakuri cried. At this moment, as long as they are the first-line experts in New World, almost all of them have a strong interest in Lin Yan. Among them, the beast pirates are the most violent. I like this Lin Yan. If you can join our pirate group, oh, hey. Kaido drank all the wine in the wine jar in one breath and slammed it on the table, making the table make a violent noise. Touching the Tianlong people proves his courage. Defeated Akainu, proving he was capable. Having betrayed the whitebeard pirates means that he now has no power. Kaido has always focused on improving the overall strength of his pirate group. In order to achieve his goals, it is not an exaggeration to describe him as using any means necessary. Kaido was very fond of Lin Yan's strength. Just such a person. If he joins other forces, isn't it a loss to their beasts pirates? As for the whitebeard pirates, Kaido has no good feelings towards Whitebeard. The friction between the 2 sides on the sea will not last for a day or 2. Weaken the white group and increase your own beast group. Kaido never gets tired of it. Leave this matter to me. The ship-reliant king volunteered and prepared to go to the first half of the Great Route to recruit Lin Yan. Chapter 35. When the outside world is making huge waves. Of course, the whitebeard pirates are not stable either. News about Lin Yan spread to the Moby DK. To say that before this, the people on the ship hated Lin Yan. How many people looked on with cold eyes, how many people sneered, and how many people laughed at how long Lin Yan could keep dancing. They have even imagined that under the pursuit of Marine, the rebel Lin Yan was captured and thrown into the great prison under the sea, and was exiled to never-ending peace. After all, even if you, Lin Yan, can hide, can you still avoid Marine's pursuit? Their 4 emperors group is known as the Sea Emperor in the New World. Marine has their footprints all over the world. Especially when it was learned that General Marine actually took action himself. There are more people who want to watch a good show. However, what they never expected was, I thought that with General Marine's intervention, this shameless rebel could be arrested naturally. But with the news of today's newspaper, on the entire Moby DK, everyone goes down to the ordinary soldier crew, right up to the cotter captain. Everyone was shocked by the content in the newspaper. This. I'm not blind, am I? Akainu, he actually lost. No, you Akainu are a marine general. What's going on? Can't you defeat a small pirate? Wait a minute, the newspaper said that Lin Yan stabbed Akainu in the chest? He almost stabbed him in the heart. Nanny. Gitui, it's better now. Akainu will probably hate him for the rest of his life. The moment I saw the newspaper, the illusions of the Whitebeard Pirates crew members disappeared like bubbles. About Lin Yan's strength. If others don't know it, don't they, the Whitebeard Pirates, know it? Outside rumors are just rumors after all. They truly saw the difference in Lin Yan's talent. Now you tell me. He is just such a guy who has worked hard for 10 years but still can't get up the wall. He is such an inconspicuous guy in the Whitebeard Pirates. It's a guy they don't take seriously at all. He actually took down General Marine? The crew of the Whitebeard Pirates were eating normally, when suddenly someone got angry and lifted the table, shouting, if it's difficult, don't do it. Who is not confused by this? Even if their first team captain Marco, second team captain Ace, and third team captain Jose come together, they may not be able to defeat Akainu. The moment the newspaper appeared, everyone just felt like the world was spinning. The world seems to have become quiet. They wanted to see a good show. As a result, he became the one being watched. The gap between before and after is really too big. Of course. Not that no one questions it. After all, Lin Yan could overthrow the general. This is really too outrageous and unbelievable. But the thought just came up. In the blink of an eye, it settled down again. Newspapers are flying all over the place. Marine has not yet come out to refute the rumors. Enough to prove it. This thing is 80% true. Sitting in the main seat, Whitebeard put down the newspaper in his hand. Kilolala. This guy is really getting more and more noisy on the sea. Dad, do you think this is true? Marco was still a little unbelievable. Lin Yan is able to defeat Akainu. Doesn't that mean his strength? Now he is superior to all their captains? This is too dreamy, that's Sakaski. Josie also shook his head one after another. Whitebeard looked at the blue sky in front of him, feeling the breeze in his ears, and his inverted beard danced with the wind. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and then he shouted, "Now you know there is pressure? I usually let you practice well. You all slack off, Dad can't keep protecting you all your life." After listening to Whitebeard's words, Marco, Josie, Baista, and others lowered their heads. Lin Yan's blow to them was really big. No need to think about it. From now on, it will be a sure thing that the other party surpasses himself and others. Why? That's all. You said it but you didn't listen, you heard it but you didn't do it, and you did it but you did it wrong. I don't want you to be in trouble. Cultivation is all about self-consciousness. You can figure it out on your own from now on. Whitebeard just gave up and did not continue to entangle in this aspect. Aboard Moby Dick, silence fell briefly. In the corner of the deck. After listening to Whitebeard's nagging, Blackbeard Teach remained calm and returned to his room silently. Bang! Just after returning to the house, Teach slammed the table. There was just a loud noise, and the table turned into powder and shattered on the spot, with sawdust flying everywhere. Teach, on the other hand, had a gloomy face, a terrifyingly ugly face, with bulging veins, like a devil from the abyss of hell, which made people shudder. This dark fruit is mine, mine. I have been waiting for this day for more than 20 years, more than 20 years. Why was this guy like you the first to get in? Lin Yan. Teach's roaring voice echoed throughout the room, not to mention how angry he felt. It would be fine if Lin Yan didn't know how to control the dark fruit. So he became the target of public criticism. Then all that is left for him is death. But it happens to be. He betrayed the Whitebeard pirates and provoked the celestial dragons. Even when the general went to arrest him personally, he was repelled. Such a brilliant achievement. When New World's 4 emperors were young, I'm afraid they couldn't reach his level. Every time Lin Yan gets stronger and makes more noise in the New World, Teach feels that he is one step further away from regaining the dark fruit. As one goes and the other goes, how can Teach sit still? But the problem is, look around the world. How many people dare to challenge Lin Yan? The name of the person whose shadow is the tree. On this occasion Akainu lost. Who dares to provoke this evil star? No matter how much he, Teach, wants the dark fruit, he can only suppress his heart and sigh in despair. Could it be? Are you unable to achieve the goals you want in this life? Teach raised his head, a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. No. No. Not so. I still have a chance. Another great opportunity. Whether it's the Whitebeard pirates or Marine. The two sides have been at odds for so many years. It's time to decide the winner. And just when Marine and the Whitebeard pirates were deciding the winner, he Teach. They all still have the capital to make a comeback. It is never easy to start a dispute. But what a coincidence. A bold idea appeared in Teach's mind. Taking out the phone, Teach dialed Ace's number. Ace, where are you? As the phone was connected, Teach asked the other party calmly. Chapter 36. Lin Yan looked at his system panel. To be honest, he was a little uneasy. What are the system requirements? Withstood 30 rounds in Akainu's hands. But now comes the problem. His fight with Akainu. Are there 30 rounds? Akainu punched 3 times, and then he took the opportunity to drag the opponent into the water. Yes. It stands to reason that he defeated Akainu. But doesn't Lin Yan know that he is being opportunistic? There really needs to be a head-on collision between real men. No need to think about it. The ending must be 7 or 3. Akainu punches 7 times and splits himself into 3 pieces. Finally, system movement came again. Congratulations to host for over-fulfilling the temporary task, rewards are being released. Hey? Are there any rewards for over-completion of tasks? The moment the system prompted, Lin Yan looked towards the panel. For a moment, the hesitation in Lin Yan's heart disappeared. If you overachieve, doesn't that mean that the rewards you get will be even higher? To know. Resisting Akainu for 30 rounds is only an A-level reward. The one higher than A-level is S-level. Put it this way. Sure enough. Just like what Lin Yan was thinking. Congratulations to host, you won, S-level lottery. Good. Lin Yan couldn't help but shout hello. Dear host, do you want to hold an S-level lottery? Sure. The S-level lottery is in progress. Extraction completed. Congratulations to host for getting 5 years of training experience, all attributes increased by 5 levels, and 1 piece talent. The system quickly issued rewards. The moment I saw the system release the reward, Lin Yan suddenly stood up from his chair. It seemed that the injury was not yet healed. Lin Yan grimaced in pain. Fortunately, he was calmed down quickly. What is Lin Yan lacking most now? Strength? Domineering? Devil fruit? Cultivation experience? None of these. The worst thing about Lin Yan was his talent. Even if there was some improvement before, it was only a detail at best. The impact on Lin Yan's growth rate is not great. But things are different now. 1 piece level talent was obtained by myself. How could Lin Yan sit still? System, open the character panel. Lin Yan shouted towards the system. Opening the character panel, opening completed. Character, Lin Yan talent, reaching the peak fruit, dark fruit LV80 ability, physical skills LV81 haki, armed haki LV81, knowledge haki LV80, conqueror's haki LV80 item, any door, fairy beans X9. Look at the data listed in the panel. Lin Yan couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Level 80. After 5 years of training experience, my attributes in all aspects have soared to level 80? How much was it before? Around 60. Moreover, the improvement of this level becomes more and more difficult in the later stages. After reaching 50, the experience gained at each level is more than several times that of the previous one. Just relying on his daily practice and looking at the panel that had not made any progress, Lin Yan already felt full of pressure. But even so, the speed of this increase. But it still left Lin Yan stunned. It's so incredible. Previously, Lin Yan was able to fight back and forth with the Lieutenant General, but barely relied on his special ability to defeat Akainu with difficulty. But now, the intervention of 1 piece talent. He is no longer the so-called challenging general before. Today, Lin Yan can only return with hatred even if he asks Akainu to come again. Based on his own rough estimation, before playing against Akainu, Lin Yan was only a substitute general. But now, obtained the 1 piece talent. In conjunction with 5 years of cultivation experience. It's not an exaggeration for Lin Yan to reach the top in 1 step. Him at this moment. He truly has the combat power of a general. Of course. Generals are also divided into 3, 6, or 9 levels. Although Lin Yan is still no match for veteran generals like Akainu. But he won't be beaten to pieces by the opponent with just 3 punches like before. Overall, the 1 piece level talent obtained this time. Let Lin Yan benefit a lot. Lin Yan, it's time to take medicine. At this moment, the door to the room was pushed open, and Nami walked in from the outside, holding a bowl of medicine in his hand. Although the injury can heal quickly, but still couldn't stand Nami's insistence. No matter what, he must let Lin Yan recover from his injuries. And she is responsible for taking care of her own diet and daily life. At this point, Lin Yan couldn't make the decision. I can only let Nami control me. Every day, I am like an animal in a zoo, waiting for the director to feed me. Fortunately, several days passed and she felt relieved after seeing Lin Yan's injuries completely healed. By the way, why don't you wear the clothes I gave you before? Lin Yan suddenly asked curiously. Nami's cheeks turned red, but she still asked, Do you like watching it? Well, how should I put it, not many men would refuse. Lin Yan explained. Although Nami was a little repulsive, since it was Lin Yan's request. With a smile on her face, she put her hands on her hips and said, since you have been so obedient these past few days, I will give you a reward. Say it. Nami returned to the room. When half an hour later, Nami, dressed in a cool outfit, appeared in front of Lin Yan. It's so cool. Nami's figure was so impressive that even Lin Yan couldn't help but give a thumbs up. At the same time, he wiped his nose subconsciously. After making sure nothing leaked out, Lin Yan relaxed. Let's go to Alabasta. Nami pointed in the direction of Alabasta and drove the boat towards the destination. Chapter 37. The reason for heading to Alabasta. Lin Yan's target was Nico Robin. Nami has been recruited on board, so how could Lin Yan miss Robin? Not to mention, among the tasks issued by the system, the first step is to recruit 5 crew members, including himself, and the influence of each crew member must reach at least A level. It just so happens that now that everything on my side has been settled, it's time to recruit the next newcomer. Lin Yan, look, there's a ship in front of you. On the way out, Nami suddenly noticed a small boat appearing on the distant sea level. The sea doesn't belong to us. Isn't it normal for there to be other ships? Lin Yan replied. On the Grand Line, whether it is a pirate ship, other passenger ships, merchant ships, or even marine warships, etc. There is a constant stream of people coming and going, some are running for a living, some are patrolling the sea, and some are preparing to pass through Fishman Island and reach the New World. The sea area in the first half of the Grand Line is just this size of land. I met him 8 times out of 10. It's totally normal. You'd better come over and take a look. Nami insisted. Lin Yan looked in the direction Nami pointed. It's better not to look at it. After reading it, Lin Yan also paused. Where it enters the eye. It was a 1-leaf boat. The boat is pitifully small. At best, it can only accommodate 1 person. This reminded Lin Yan of the time when he betrayed the Whitebeard pirates. He also traveled alone in a lone boat to avoid the search of the Whitebeard pirates. Just the extreme weather on the Grand Line. Lin Yan's boat was almost capsized several times. In other words, he can really understand that without a reliable ship, it is simply a dream to gain a foothold on this sea. The point is, on the boat was a middle-aged man with a cane and a black scarf covering his eyes. Wearing a black scarf? To have such a look. There is no doubt about it. The middle-aged man in front of me is blind. Blind? Stepping on a lonely boat? This. Even Lin Yan today. They all feel incredible. No wonder Nami was so surprised. After a short period of excitement, Lin Yan frowned again. Where is this place? This is the Grand Route. A blind man. Driving a lone boat means you have the courage to face the rough sea. It is absolutely impossible to say that there is no full strength. Lin Yan looked at the other party carefully. It's better not to look at it. Just such a startling glimpse. An image condensed in Lin Yan's heart. This guy is. Lin Yan narrowed his eyes slightly at first, and then a smile appeared on his lips. The light in his eyes was very hot, as if he had seen someone of the opposite S*X on a deserted island in March. The blind man now. You're not a member of Marine yet. Put it this way. When Nami found the blind man, the blind man raised his head and looked towards their ship. The blind man asked, boatman in front, are you going to the Sabayati Islands? Can you give me a ride? Sabayati Islands? Nami and Lin Yan had just left the Sabayati Islands and were now preparing to head to the Desert Kingdom at the mouth of the Grand Line. It's a pity. They were not along the way. Nami explained, unfortunately, we are coming from the Sabayati Islands. She hasn't finished speaking yet. Cherry's little mouth was blocked by Lin Yan. Follow me on my way, helping others is the basis of happiness, you come up first. Lin Yan covered Nami's mouth with one hand and answered at the same time. Thank you. The blind man nodded. As the ladder was lowered, the blind man jumped lightly, showing his strength. On the contrary, he climbed up the ladder step by step very skillfully. At first glance, no different from ordinary people. When coming close, only then did Nami see the blind man holding a cane with his hands in the dark. Are you really a blind person? Seeing the black scarf wrapped around the blind man's eyes, Nami thought it was just a decoration. But when I saw a blind man using crutches to find his way around, he kept groping around. She suddenly came back to her senses. Is this eye patch really not a decoration? I have to say I'm not shocked. That's impossible. As a navigator, Nami is well aware of the dangers on the Grand Line. What's the result? The blind man in front of me just went straight out to sea. If this is not careful, what should I do if I fall into the sea? There is no one around, not even anyone to rescue him. Even if he died, no one would know. This moment, Nami was like a bolt from the blue. The whole person was stunned on the spot. Hearing Nami's question, the blind man was neither arrogant nor impetuous, and always had a kind smile on his face. He said, I'm really ashamed. I have experienced the injustice of this world in my early years. It is a blessing to be blind. There are really too many dirty people that people can't bear to look at, so I'm going to kill myself and scare you. Although it was just a few words. But Nami could still learn from the other party's tone. I can hear the other party's insistence on the belief in his heart. Such people can be respected no matter where they are. The same goes for Nami. She did not insist on this topic, but asked in a different way, then you, why do you go out to sea alone? The climate on this sea is very extreme. If you are not careful, if you fall, what should I do if the sea breaks out? The blind man nodded, thank you for your concern, but I don't think I have any worries in this regard. After all, I won't fall into the sea so easily. No worries? Won't fall into the sea? This is no longer visible. Do you know how dangerous this sea is? Nami felt very strange. You can't even see the road clearly, how do you get to the Sabayati Islands? The blind man said, although I can't see, it doesn't affect my perception of the surroundings. I have heard before that there are everyone on the Grand Line. Nami still doesn't believe it. Now, she believed it. Lonely boat, bad weather, sailing the Grand Line alone, still blind. Various buffs are stacked up. Are you so desperate for life? She originally thought that Lin Yan was invincible by betraying the Whitebeard pirates, attacking the celestial dragons, and angering the black and white factions. She did not expect that the blind man in front of her was more desperate than Luffy. Whose general is this Tama? The blind man raised his head, looked at Nami, and then at Lin Yan. He also asked his doubts, you two, you are not ordinary people, are you pirates? But, I am here for you. I can't feel the breath of those pirates on my body. Lin Yan said, can you still feel this thing? The blind man nodded, I am blind in both eyes, but my other abilities are still intact, and I am even a little stronger than before because of this indeed. Loss of visual judgment. As an alternative, the 5 senses will also be significantly improved. After a little understanding, Lin Yan felt more and more that the blind man in front of him was the one in his mind. We are destined to meet each other thousands of miles away, but it is rare to meet each other. How about we get to know each other? Dressed like a vagabond, the blind man replied, smile. This is my name. Chapter 38. The moment I heard the name, Lin Yan looked like this. A smile. General Marine 2 years after the war. With terrifying strength, he went through the world conscription and came to the Marine headquarters, defeating Momuzagi, Chado, and other substitute generals. In the end, he was successfully promoted and became one of the most powerful Marines worthy of the name. Yuxiao has also established a lot of prestige among Marine because of his integrity, gentleness, attention to the people, and setting an example. He has even seen the corruption in Dressrosa. This also solidified his opposition to the Shishibukai system. The Shishibukai system must be abolished from their Marines. The failure of the war allowed the 5 elders to put pressure on Sengoku, throwing all the pressure on Sengoku. Sengoku was also forced to abdicate and gave up the position of Marine Fleet Admiral. This position was also competed for by Akainu and Aokiji. The final result was that Akainu used his absolute strength to take the position of Fleet Admiral at the cost of one hand. But Aokiji left Marine because of this, stayed quiet for a long time, and finally revealed that he had joined the Blackbeard pirates. As for the positions of the 2 vacant generals, one was taken by Yuxiao, codenamed Fujitora, and the other fell to Green Bull. Certainly. A smile now. Not the world-famous Marine general codenamed Fujitora. At this moment, he is just a rogue swordsman. He has traveled far and wide and is at home everywhere. He is just a simple spectator. Lin Yan was extremely serious, so you just smile. I have long admired your name. Well. Regarding Lin Yan's appearance, Yu Xiao was naturally confused. What does it mean to admire a great name for a long time? Are you famous? Besides, why did Lin Yan in front of him look so familiar when he saw him? After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, You know my name. Ha ha ha. Lin Yan smiled in his heart. The long-term admiration for the famous name is just a courtesy. How could he know Yu Xiao's identity? At best, you can just guess it through the other person's appearance. But these thoughts are just in my mind. It is the identity of a Ronin. Haven't joined Marine yet. He has this terrifying strength. If you haven't encountered it, that's it. Now that we have met. If he just allowed Yu Xiao to develop freely, he would join Marine in the future, become his enemy, become the puppet of the five elders, and create countless troubles for himself. It's better to make a decisive decision now. Counterattack an army. Let's first invite Yu Xiao in. The combat power of a general. How could Lin Yan not be moved? Firstly, it weakens Marine's strength, and secondly, it also enhances the overall combat power of his own pirate group. Killing two birds with one stone, why not? With the most basic courtesy, Lin Yan said very politely, It's natural. When I was sailing around here, I heard about a blind wanderer wandering around in a lone boat. He hated evil and stood up for the people. Go out without hesitation and move forward courageously on your own moral principles. I have wanted to meet you for a long time, and now I finally have the opportunity to see you in person. Nami paused. Haven't you been recovering from your injuries these days? When did you get off the ship? And didn't we just come from the Sabayati Islands? When did you hear that? How come I don't know? Of course. Nami's thoughts are just thoughts. She knew Lin Yan's character and would never do anything she wasn't sure about. Think about it. Or choose to wait and see what happens. Yu Xiao was still a little confused. Although he didn't do anything big along the way, he did do some trivial things and helped many villagers solve some difficulties. But this is so-called difficult. Not impressive at all. Unexpectedly, this was known to Lin Yan in front of him. This is something that feels incredible. But Lin Yan said so. I guess I have heard of similar things. You are overly praised. Yu Xiao shook his head, seemingly not caring. But the slightly raised corners of his mouth still betrayed the joy in his heart. After all, who doesn't want what they do to be known to others? What are your names? After some courtesy exchanges, Yu Xiao became quite curious about Lin Yan's identity. This is my crew, Nami. Lin Yan pointed at Nami and said. Nami bowed slightly to show respect. You are right, we are indeed a pirate ship. The pirate group has just been established. To be honest, we haven't even thought of a name for the pirate group yet. I really haven't thought about the name, Brother Tam. If you have any ideas, you can leave a message here. It's better to be more domineering, thank you. As for my name. Lin Yan thought for a while, and then he said softly, Lin Yan, I wonder if you have heard of it. Logically speaking. Walking on the sea with a smile. They are all blind, so they shouldn't be able to read the so-called newspapers. Lin Yan revealed his identity. However, he still guessed wrong. The moment he gave his name, the smile that originally had a smile on his lips suddenly turned cold. Then his brows furrowed, and surprise flashed in his eyes. The expression he looked at Lin Yan began to gradually change. He smiled and said, Are you the Lin Yan who attacked the Tianlong people and betrayed the Whitebeard pirates? Lin Yan was surprised, You know me? Yi smiled and nodded, Who in the entire Grand Line doesn't know your name now? Lin Yan smiled, but he didn't expect it. Even Yu Xiao actually knew about this kind of thing. I have a question. Although he was surprised by Lin Yan's name and identity, after getting acquainted with him this time, Yu Xiao could not tell that Lin Yan had the fearless and vicious image in the rumors. On Lin Yan's body. When I smiled, I saw that he was elegant and easygoing, like a spring breeze. Even when talking, he was polite and well-controlled. Such people. Is it really that scary? What's the problem? Lin Yan looked over and smiled. You. Why do you want to attack the celestial dragons? You know, what is the goal of Yu Xiao? Regardless of whether he wants to join the marine or not, and whether he wants to abolish the 7 warlords of the sea system in the future. Yu Xiao truly hopes that the world can be peaceful, so that every citizen can enjoy relatively equal treatment. Where there is injustice, there is a way, and the unjust can be eradicated. An absolutely perfect world, Yu Xiao knew that was impossible. But he also hopes to use his own modest efforts to create a happy future for the world. This is what Yu Xiao has wanted all his life, and what he wants to accomplish for the rest of his life. Against the celestial dragons. Lin Yan smiled and said, I really didn't expect that you would actually complain for the Tianlong people. Yu Xiao denied, no, I'm just curious. You should know what kind of trouble and price it will bring to you and your pirate group after touching the Tianlong people. Let's talk about the Tianlong people. No one in Marine has a good impression. Yu Xiao hasn't joined Marine yet, so naturally he won't get close to her. Madara about the misdeeds of the celestial dragons outside. It's not like he hasn't heard of it. Yeah, I know. Lin Yan was thinking rapidly in his mind, and soon he had the answer. It goes without saying how notorious the celestial dragons are. Any crime you name can be linked to them. Lin Yan continued, everything you do has a motive. My idea is very simple. You don't know something. When I was young, my hometown was attacked by the Tianlong people. Almost all my fellow villagers were caught. Mary Joya, even my parents. What? You said you didn't have this experience? Of course it was Lin Yan who made this nonsense. Said this series of words. It was nothing more than trying to comfort him with a smile. People like Yu Xiao. Naturally, I have no interest in pirates. And what Lin Yan has to do now? At least Yu Xiao needs to relax. Try to accept yourself. Next. Lin Yan continued to explain blindly. For example, my hometown was looted by the Tianlong people. All relatives were arrested. He barely survived by hiding in the cellar and so on. In short, I can't describe how miserable it is. After some words. Even Nami was moved. She covered her little mouth, her heart trembled, and she looked at Lin Yan blankly. Never expected it. Lin Yan actually had such a life experience. If she hadn't met Yu Xiao today, she would have never heard of it from Lin Yan. I see. If you want to deceive others, of course you have to deceive yourself as well. This is the case with Nami, and the same is true with Yu Xiao. He looked enlightened. If something like this happened to me, I guess I wouldn't be able to calm down easily. It's no wonder that Lin Yan regards the Tianlong people as targets. He even did such a bad thing. Well. He smiled apologetically and said, I'm sorry, I was rude. Looking at the apology with a smile. Lin Yan felt happy. Since ancient times, true love cannot be retained, only tricks can win people's hearts. It worked. But Lin Yan shook his head in dejection, with a look of revenge, and said, if I could, I would also like to do something good for the people of the world and let people all over the world live an equal life. Unfortunately, I know this is impossible. Shishibukai, the pirates of the New World are certainly hateful, but how strong is the Marine? As the top brass of the Marine, do they dare to disobey the orders of the celestial dragons? In the final analysis, the Tianlong people are the masters of this world, and there is a long way to go to dismantle it all. This is a reason. As soon as this statement came out, especially when I heard the words bringing benefit to the people, this made Yu Xiao's originally calm heart gradually begin to float. Do you think so too? Chapter 39. I couldn't imagine it with a smile. Lin Yan in front of him actually had the same consciousness as himself. Is this really the man who defeated General Marine and was despised by pirates all over the world? As the saying goes, you know people but don't know their faces. See you today. A smile can be regarded as a lesson learned. Actually, I have selfish motives for telling you so much. Lin Yan said. Selfish? A puzzled smile. Yu Xiao, you are going to the Sabayati Islands this time because you want to join Marine, right? Lin Yan raised his head and looked at Yu Xiao. Hear this. The smile fell silent. As early as a long time ago. He knew that if he wanted to achieve his goals, joining Marine was the best choice. Marine. This is the place where you can show your talents. What Yu Xiao didn't expect was that his idea was actually seen by Lin Yan, whom he met for the first time. Yu Xiao did not deny it, he said, I do have this idea. Lin Yan said, Do you want to fulfill your ambition through marine? Looking at the blue sky in front of him with a smile, he leaned on crutches and said, Marine is probably the only place where I can realize my wish. Although I don't know where Lin Yan learned these things and what his own thoughts are. But marine is indeed where Yuxiao wants to join. Lin Yan's gate of opening came straight to the point, with firmness in his eyes, with a smile, I won't beat around the bush, I want to invite you to join my pirate group. Join your pirate group? After hearing Lin Yan's words, he smiled a little, but he didn't expect that Lin Yan would invite him. After a long time, he smiled and said, we must be meeting for the first time. The implication. It is inappropriate to send out an invitation letter after the first meeting. Lin Yan said, I am a person who values what one wants. The pirate group has just been established, and its main focus is on eye relations. Since we have a good conversation, why not get together and work together? Yuxiao shook his head and said, I also told you that my goal is to join marine. Since I have chosen marine, I will naturally stand on the opposite side of you pirates. For pirates. To be honest, Yuxiao is not interested. Moreover, once you join the pirates, it goes against his original intention from the beginning. Lin Yan really felt good to him. But in the final analysis, people like Lin Yan are just an exception after all. The vast majority of pirates are still the kind who burn, kill, loot, and commit all kinds of evil. Don't say anything else. This is the case with the pirates in the East China Sea. Of course, marine may not be as good as imagined, but at least they are on the side of the people. I believe that with my personal ability, I can still guard the land and protect the peace. After a pause, Yuxiao added. Your strength is very strong. Although I haven't tested it, I can still feel it. Yes, you do have such an ability, but there is one thing I think you need to understand. Having said this, Lin Yan paused for a moment and did not continue to elaborate, deliberately leaving it behind. Which point? Yuxiao asked. Guarding a party's peace requires not only ability and strength, but also a strong background. A man who did not want to be named said it well, when you come out to hang out, you need to talk about your power and background. Without these, if you want to stand out in the mixed marine, it will be difficult to achieve success. As a soldier, what you need to do is obey the orders of your superiors. Given your character who neither fights nor grabs, but easily disobeys marine's orders, I guess you won't be able to be reused within 5 years. Imagine that you have wasted 5 years and ended up stuck at the level of a soldier. Later, even if you were appreciated by your boss and promoted successfully for other reasons, you would still be stuck at the same level in the end. Under such circumstances, how can you talk about protecting the common people? How can you talk about protecting the settlement of one side? Lin Yan's words hit the nail on the head. Even Yuxiao has confidence in his own power. But after listening to it, especially when you are middle-aged, you can see a lot of things clearly. How many passionate men have ended up unhappy after entering marine? Who could have predicted it? Will I follow in their footsteps again? This. Yuxiao fell silent, and Lin Yan's words really hit the point. Then what do you think? In order to accomplish all of this, what official rank in the marine do you need to achieve so that you can use your remaining energy? General. Lin Yan spat out these 2 words without politeness. Hear the word. Even if he smiles, his expression can't help but change. What level is a general? That's one of marine's highest combat abilities. Be it status or rights. Almost always the top position except fleet admiral. Among those millions of marines, it's nothing more than that there are only 3 such terrifying powerhouses. They are as good as the 4 emperors. His status is also incredibly high, admired and chased by countless marines. It is a goal that most people want to achieve even after spending their entire lives. Lin Yan continued, if you want to have the right to speak in marine, you must step into the position of general. Only when you reach this point can you truly instill the beliefs you want and others will be convinced of you. However, do you think that in as little as 5 years or as long as 10 years, you can become that 1 in a million general with a smile? He smiled and said nothing. He just raised his head and lowered it slightly. The whole person seemed a little depressed. He knows it too. Even in how to have confidence. It is absolutely impossible for him to become a marine general within 10 years. After all, this position is in marine. There are only 3. As for Kizaru, Aokiji, and Akainu, which one is not in its prime? Even 10 years later, they are still able to stand strong in marine. Especially the competition in marine is also extremely fierce. I want to reach the position of general. Easier said than done? If they don't step down, it will be impossible for them to get up. After a long time, it seemed that he felt that life was helpless and he had no control over his fate. He smiled and sighed, "You are right." Looking down with a smile. Lin Yan had a casual smile on his face. Actually, join marine once a smile. As long as the Warring States period is not blind, marine will definitely have a place for laughter in the future. As the saying goes, gold always shines. A smile is more than gold. If he is gold, then other people are not even the decorations next to gold. Just show some strength. It is already empty to describe it as a blue cloud. Will this career last 5 or 10 years? If he can't reach the level of lieutenant general within 2 years, then marine will just live longer and go back. But would Lin Yan say that? Of course he won't. Only a fool would do this. Isn't this for nothing? And soon. Although I don't know if it will happen. But marine will definitely take action against the whitebeard pirates. After all, Whitebeard is now in his prime. Over the years, marine's prestige on the sea has been declining day by day. At this time, it is even more necessary to kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Use the blood of the enemy to pave the way for their marines to reach the rank of god. Whitebeard at the end of the year. This is the perfect choice for marine to establish his reputation. Although he has taken away the dark fruit, Blackbeard teach has not yet risen. Will Ace become a bargaining chip again? If a war breaks out on top, there is no need to say more about the subsequent script. Fleet Admiral Sengoku abdicated. Akainu Aokiji competes for the position of Fleet Admiral. The vacant positions will be filled by new marine generals. A smile. It is one of them. But these are things that happened a few years later. This kind of thing. How can one know with a smile? The main thing is the information gap. After Lin Yan's persuasion, Yu Xiao's original determination to join marine began to relax. Saw a smile. Lin Yan understood. Own opportunity. It's here now. Yu Xiao, since marine can't help you realize your ideal, how about you come to my place and give it a try? Chapter 40. Yu Xiao realized that marine was not the best choice. He said, "Do you know why I stabbed my eyes blind? I can guess it. I can't stand the injustice of the world, the dirty power, and the coldness of the world. I can't stand the ugly faces of those in power who are watching with cold eyes." Lin Yan replied. "It's still you after all." Lin Yan's words spoke to Yu Xiao's heart, "That's why I won't choose to be a pirate." Lin Yan watched and smiled. "I want people like him to join my pirate group. It is indeed very difficult. But if there was no such difficulty, how to live up to the generous reward in the end?" Lin Yan faced the difficulty. He looked at the other person seriously and said, "What kind of person do you think I am?" Yu Xiao didn't expect that Lin Yan suddenly wanted to comment on him. "Integrity, sunshine, completely different from the pirates I have encountered in the outside world, and he does not have the bad temper that those pirates should have." Yu Xiao gave Lin Yan a very high rating. "Thank you for such a high review. I know you don't have any good impressions of pirates, but you can't beat us all to death with one stick. Maybe I am the exception. You have to understand that if you join marine now, you will definitely not be reused within 5 years. You have lost your eyesight. You don't want to see the suffering in the world. You don't want your skills to be used in this crowded marine. Are you buried in it? Smile and say nothing." Listening quietly to what Lin Yan said. "My pirate group has just been established. Not only will it give you the best treatment, but it will also give you a whole new world and a chance to show off your abilities. And this opportunity is right in front of you. Whether you pick it up or give it up is just a matter of raising your hand." At this moment, Lin Yan's words pierced his heart. A smile had already touched him, but at this juncture, Lin Yan added another spark: enter the new world, travel the entire Great Sea route, and travel across the mountains and rivers of the world. Although we cannot completely eradicate injustice in the world, we can at least do something. As far as the eye can see, you will have a clear conscience. Yu Xiao, join us, we need you, and the people of this world also need you." As Lin Yan finished speaking, Yu Xiao gradually raised his head, his eyes glowing again. "As far as the eye can see, there is a clear conscience. The people of this world need themselves. Just a short speech. But it hit the depths of his soul. Just like the light before dawn, I have been through the dark years for many years, and finally it shines on myself. So far. Every time he smiles, he is just a cosmopolitan wanderer. But now. On Lin Yan's body. He couldn't help but rekindle his hope. Yes. A smile has already moved my heart. I heard that even Marine General Akainu was defeated by you. With a pointed smile, he asked Lin Yan. I don't think even Akainu can compare with you. When Lin Yan heard this, he thought it was interesting. I want to compete with you. If you win, I will join your pirate group. Under the black scarf's blindfold, he smiled in a calm yet serious tone, as if he had made up his mind. Lin Yan raised his head suddenly. Really? Certainly. Since both parties have agreed. Yi smiled and said, how about we dock the ship first? Both of them have devil fruit abilities. Fight on the sea. It's obviously inappropriate. Lin Yan said directly, we can't find a place to stay for a while, so let's just start here. Directly here. Yuxiao was surprised by Lin Yan's words. Where is this place? The sea. About Lin Yan's victory over Akainu. A smile can also be heard a little bit. Pulled the other party into the sea. Although it was strange why Lin Yan was not bound by the sea. But he finally escaped from Marine's blockade. The last battle to become famous. Certainly. Yuxiao doesn't care where the fight takes place. Has the fruit of gravity. It's easy to float on the ocean. And what about Lin Yan? How should he gain a foothold? Soon. Smile and see the answer. But he saw Lin Yan pressing his hand on the sea. Boom. The sea was instantly covered with dark fruits. Stepping on the darkness under his feet, Lin Yan took a step forward. I see. Seeing Lin Yan's movements, he smiled and nodded, understanding. While lamenting that Lin Yan still had such means, Yuxiao also felt a slight warmth in his heart. In order to invite herself on the ship as soon as possible, Lin Yan could not wait any longer. Isn't this respect for oneself? And Lin Yan's influence on this sea is what he has shown now. Aim to be on top of the world from now on. It's just a matter of time. Perhaps. Myself many years later. Maybe you will be happy with your choice today? For a moment. The two of them were lined up on the sea. Lin Yan stepped on the darkness beneath his feet. Yuxiao is suspended in the air through the gravity fruit. Bite. With a flash of silver light, he pulled out the sword from the cane with a smile. No excessive nonsense. After entering the fighting state, Lin Yan's eyes were sharp, and he disappeared from the spot in an instant, and came straight with a smile. Yuxiao's expression was as usual, but his eyes revealed the importance he attached to this confrontation. He did not retreat but advanced, and also faced him. The two of them turned into a stream of light, moving as fast as lightning and as fast as thunder. One side is a fist covered in armed domineering, and the other side is a long sword with a cold glow. Boom! There was a crisp collision, like a metal collision. One blow. The sea beneath my feet sank more than 10 meters. Huge ripples, starting from the two of them, were released towards the surroundings. Severe storms continued to rage. Lightning flashed and thundered, strong winds rose suddenly, and undercurrents surged. The peaceful sky just now suddenly became dense with dark clouds, and black clouds rolled in, shrouding the sea. Not far away. Light ships are not large in size. In this wave, there are ups and downs. On deck. Nami is always holding on to the railing. Only then could he barely stabilize his posture. She looked in disbelief at the place where Yuxiao and Lin Yan were fighting. Nami's mouth opened slightly. Don't even mention how surprised I was. It was strange just now. Why would my own captain invite Yuxiao on board for no reason? Now. This is just a simple fight. There was such a horrific aftermath. Even though he followed Lin Yan into the Grand Line and experienced all kinds of things, not to mention witnessing the fight between Lin Yan and Akainu, he gained a lot of experience. But even so, she still couldn't calm down for a long time. This blind man. Is he actually so strong? Chapter 41. Yuxiao's strength has already promoted him to the rank of general for many years. Lin Yan relied on the one-piece talent he obtained last time, and his strength has reached the level of a general. And the reason why he agreed to Yuxiao's invitation. First, I want to invite the other person on board. Secondly, Lin Yan also wanted to test what kind of effect his current strength could produce. Previously, after defeating Akainu and becoming famous in a battle on the Grand Line, although a large number of pirates saw that they had taken a detour, but there are also some stubborn people who are inspired by the rewards and benefits. They took the initiative to attack Lin Yan. The end result speaks for itself. The sea is littered with broken limbs. All kinds of people fell into the sea. The pirate group was destroyed, and the warships were sunk. Lin Yan, on the other hand, drove away from the scene of the incident with Nami unscathed. As for whether they will be saved in the end, that's not something he should consider. But it's different when you smile. Facing such a powerful enemy, even Lin Yan didn't dare to slack off at all. After the first confrontation, Lin Yan and Yuxiao retreated violently. He glanced at Yuxiao. Yuxiao's strength is indeed strong enough. No matter how you put it, you have reached a level comparable to that of a general. But even so, he could still feel the numbness on his arms. My body was even more shocked. Of course. Unlike last time, he was knocked out by Akainu with 3 punches. But he can also be evenly matched with Yuxiao. And Yuxiao had a solemn expression. In the first half of this great voyage, not to mention ordinary pirates, even if you let those group of Shishibukai come over, it's easy to deal with it with just a smile. But under Lin Yan's move, he was almost defeated. How could this keep his heart from being disturbed? It's no wonder that Lin Yan is now famous throughout the Grand Line. His strength. He is also worthy of the outside world's evaluation of him. Yuxiao said seriously, it's really amazing. His words were very matter of fact. It's a sentiment. It's like being out at sea for a long time and finally meeting someone who is your match. In such a state, it can also stimulate the fighting spirit in your body. But all this was heard in Lin Yan's ears. But it made his whole face look weird. Perhaps it was influenced by the evil atmosphere of the pirate world. Lin Yan himself would sometimes use a corresponding tone to taunt his enemies. Especially words like "that's awesome" like Kizaru's. I also learned it and put it into practice. I used to feel that such words deserved a beating. But when he said it in front of his opponent in battle. Don't tell me. What a unique experience. Looking at his opponent's look of disdain for him but unable to kill him. Not to mention how happy I feel. Question Huang Yuan, understand Huang Yuan, and surpass Huang Yuan. This also leads to. Even if I know that I am smiling, it is because of my feelings. Lin Yan also subconsciously equated it with ridicule. Come again. After knowing that Lin Yan's strength was comparable to his own, he smiled and regained his previous calmness, and his face gained a touch of calmness. Under the long knife, the silver light shines brightly. Holding a sword in one hand, he floats in the air, towering over all things. Gravity sword. Cut. The power was gathered, the sword light flashed, and 2 sword chi were swung out from Yuxiao's hand. The sword energy passes through the sea, as if tearing apart everything. The sea water is boiling, endless, and the sharp spearhead seems to tear everything apart. Lin Yan took action and took the 2 sword energy from a smile. But it has just been offset. Just look up. A smile had already come to him. One of the 12 skills of holding high the supreme sharp knife, the gambler's line of fire. Yuxiao added a blow without mercy. Dark water. A vortex appeared in Lin Yan's hand, with veins popping out, and strength emerged, and he grabbed the smiling gambler flame with his bare hands. Clang! There was another loud collision, igniting on the sea. Certainly. How is it okay to just let Yuxiao have the right to speak? Lin Yan turned from defense to offense, and the power of the dark fruit burst out instantly. First, the fruit ability of Yuxiao was confiscated. Then he shouted loudly, "Dark acupuncture point!" The power of darkness swallowed up Yuxiao. The world seemed to be shrouded in black. Everything returns to silence. But how could Yuxiao fail like this? But he saw the armed domineering force attached to the gambler's line of fire. Although there is no fruit, but many years of kendo knowledge are here. There was a bang. Yuxiao broke away from the shackles of this dark fruit. Next, the two kept making moves. Lin Yan took the initiative and frantically used his abilities against Yuxiao. And as a strong man in swordsmanship, Yuxiao's swordsmanship emphasizes subtlety. No matter how fast Lin Yan was, how fierce his attack was, Yu Xiao held a sword in his hand and defended Lin Yan's attacks impeccably. Even without the devil fruit, he is still able to handle it with ease. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had been playing for more than 3 hours and had already finished the previous round. Lin Yan went all out in almost every attack, leaving no room for effort. The fight is mutual. Yu Xiao wanted to resist. Naturally, the same force must be used. Faced with Lin Yan who was going all out, Yu Xiao was forced to show her absolute strength. After a fierce battle, Lin Yan was already panting heavily and sweating profusely. Yu Xiao barely felt better, but it was not much better. There was sweat on his forehead, and his breathing was not as steady as before. On basic strength, Lin Yan was definitely no match for Yu Xiao. After all, in the final analysis, he is just the latter who has just been promoted. And a smile. He has been in the field of generals for many years. The main thing is, over time, the blocking ability effect of the dark fruit has long since dissipated. After understanding Lin Yan's attack method and his strength, it's time. This fight was settled. It was because Yu Xiao had not caught Lin Yan's flaw before that he had not taken action with all his strength. Now, this flaw, he has already found it. Buzz. In an instant, the surrounding air began to twist, the scene became chaotic, and the gravity fruit was released again. Gravity knife. Tiger. Gravity formation. Suppression. This time, Yu Xiao released 2 abilities in succession. The gambler's line of fire has gathered into a black sword energy, which seems to be carrying tens of thousands of pounds of gravity. Even if it just crosses the sky, the air will splash out ripples. At the same time, there was a loud bang from the magnetic field. Huge pressure was like airflow, gathering towards Lin Yan's body. Lin Yan, who was speeding along, suddenly changed his expression. He was shocked to find out. Own speed. It has slowed down. His legs seemed to be stuck in a quagmire, and the slow speed made him feel like he was carrying 2 mountains on his back. Gravity fruit. In addition to enhancing Yu Xiao's attack, the most important thing is to suppress the enemy and suppress everything. It was at this time. With a smile, his body began to twist. No. Not a twist. But the speed was so fast that Lin Yan couldn't even catch it with his eyes. After all, not only does Yu Xiao possess a top devil fruit, his physical fitness has also reached the top level in the world. A superb swordsmanship. At the moment when Lin Yan's body became sluggish, a smile had already come to him. Look at Lin Yan's pupils tightening, looking defenseless. Gamblers stand out on the line of fire. Yu Xiao slashed the sword down without ceremony. Win or lose. It has reached a very obvious level. Chapter 42. The long knife is like a tiger descending from the mountain, and the tigers roar above. With the final blow of a smile, the scene looks like Lin Yan has reached a critical point. Seeing that he is about to reap the fruits of victory, even though it was a smile that was always tight on the face, they couldn't help but have a smile on their lips. Even if Lin Yan loses, for them, that's enough. After all, how old is Lin Yan now? He looks like he is in his 20s, not even 30 yet. Compare your heart to your heart. Myself back then, at the same age as Lin Yan. Can I do what he does? The answer is of course no. Yu Xiao thinks that his talent is pretty good, comparable to Lin Yan. But it is like stars and bright moon. Not to mention being able to be on par with Lin Yan, being 1/10 as good as him is already considered good. No matter what. This is placed in the grand line, especially in the first half. She is already the best among the best among the best. Marine gave him a reward of 2 billion. It's really not allowed. As for what he had promised before to defeat himself, he would join the other party's pirate group. It's basically a joke. Actually. Ask yourself. Yu Xiao also already has the intention to join the Lin Yan pirates. In other words, even though Lin Yan failed to achieve his goal, Yu Xiao will still choose his pirate group. Although we have known each other for a short time. But Lin Yan also gave him a sense of déjà vu, as if he had met him late. Seeing the other party has reached the point where there is no resistance. He could even swing a knife with force when he smiled. It has also become lighter. Even he has already thought about it. How to comfort Lin Yan, who was frustrated next. But the moment this idea came up, suddenly, when I smile, my eyes blur. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yan suddenly escaped from the constraints of his gravity array. What? He smiled and frowned, with a look of surprise on his face. Yes. Lin Yan had broken free from the constraints of his gravity array. At the same time, he dodged and came to Yuxiao. With a smile, "You are a bit." Lin Yan was so fast that even his voice became sluggish. When he rushed over, he added to Adu, "It's too early to be happy." After a sound, he was caught off guard and was blown away with a smile. The light is dazzling, penetrating the sky, and turbulent in all directions. With one punch, Lin Yan knocked Yuxiao away. It's not over yet. The wind blows under his feet and comes first. Before he could stabilize his figure with a smile, he followed up with a second punch. He made up hundreds of attacks in one go. After all, he stabilized his body with a smile and returned to defense with his long sword. Blocked Lin Yan's fatal punch. But even so, he smiled but was also extremely embarrassed. The body is also covered with the black aura of many dark fruits. How did you escape my gravity array? Needless to say, Yuxiao's gravity fruit, the devil fruit itself, is a top-notch existence, not to mention that the person who exerts the effect is the strongest among the strong. Although he is not bloodthirsty, he can accurately grasp the effects of the gravity array. Knowing how much strength to use, Lin Yan can be firmly locked in the gravity array. Lin Yan was certainly strong. But Yuxiao didn't think that the other party could break free from his shackles. At least, in his opinion. That blow just now. It is indeed the watershed between victory and defeat. However, the result was something that Yuxiao never expected. Lin Yan suddenly became angry again. Not only did he break free from the muddy shackles of the gravity array, he even turned against the general. His strength suddenly exploded, and he was beaten back step by step with punches. How to break free? Lin Yan said nothing. He just looked at him calmly and smiled. A smile calmed his breathing. He didn't rush to attack. Instead, he began to think about Lin Yan's strange behavior in his gravity array just now. Vaguely, Yuxiao seemed to see a bean appear in Lin Yan's hand. After eating that bean, Lin Yan not only broke free from the gravity array, but his strength returned to its peak. Not to mention far away. Just those few punches I just gave him. He was beaten to the point where he was helpless. Did you just eat something? Yuxiao asked. Good. Lin Yan didn't deny it either. Talk about it. Able to break free from Yuxiao's gravity array. Inseparable from the fairy beans. Although for them, long battles are out of the question. But in the final analysis, it is only based on the situation where both sides have one move and no move. Lin Yan and Yuxiao fought with all their strength. Lin Yan himself could already clearly feel the loss of energy, physical fatigue, and mental fatigue. Relatively speaking, Yuxiao was naturally affected. The strength will definitely not be as sharp as it was at the beginning. What? Why do you think Akainu and Aokiji fought for 10 days and 10 nights? How can their situation be compared with that of Lin Yan and Yuxiao? Akainu and Aokiji really fight for the position of Fleet Admiral, fighting to the death. To describe them as fighting for their lives is not an exaggeration. After a battle is over, 10 years of life will definitely be saved. Moreover, inside the world of pirates, you really can't use this aspect to measure a person's strength. Maybe Akainu and Aokiji were really devastating at the beginning, and the whole island would be razed by them. But who can guarantee that they can keep fighting in this state? In the midst of war, it's less than a few hours before and after. Whitebeard still can't hold on. Same thing. The same goes for Akainu and Aokiji. The follow-up was due to lack of strength. Both of them were at their wits' end. I had no choice but to fight in the American real man style, where you punch me and I'll punch you back, and you might even be able to stand still with your last breath. The foundation established by Lin Yan and Yuxiao was just based on discussions and bets. It's not to the point of not doing anything at all costs. Lin Yan was exhausted. Yuxiao had consumed at least 70% to 80% of his physical strength. But it is at this juncture. A fairy bean. The physical difference between Lin Yan and Yuxiao was resolved. It is precisely because of this ability. Use peak condition. Get rid of the fruity effects of a smile. In the end, he turned from defense to offense and gained the upper hand. Back to business. It should be said that the gravity array has no effect on Lin Yan. This is not enough to surprise Yu Xiao. What surprised Yu Xiao the most was, he was physically overloaded just now. What's going on right now? Why is it suddenly so full of life again? Yu Xiao fell into deep thought. He wanted to ask, but think about it. Still didn't ask further. It seems that I am no longer your opponent. Yu Xiao seemed to have seen his own ending. Certainly. There is another way. That is a waste of life. But Yu Xiao is not so crazy. He looked up at the sky. His expression was as usual, his face was indifferent, and he smiled and continued, then let's use this last move to determine the winner between the two of us. Yu Xiao put the long knife into the sheath and resumed the appearance of leaning on a cane at the beginning. This moment. A strong and powerful breath. He suddenly rose from the ground and was pulled towards the sky. Seeing Yu Xiao behave like this, Lin Yan's face instantly became serious. Sure enough. The next second. On this sea. Suddenly a huge black shadow appeared. Look up. A huge meteorite. It was rapidly expanding in Lin Yan's eyes. Chapter 43. This is. On the boat, Nami raised his head and looked at the meteorites coming quickly. Nami's pupils were shaking. Involve a meteorite? This. Nami is so shocked at this moment. Simply unheard of. What kind of method is this? Lin Yan looked towards the sky. Planetary devastation? How awesome! This was just a casual slap with a smile. Talk about it. Yu Xiao has never shown his true strength. It is absolutely impossible for the gravity fruit to affect only one meteorite. In other words, just smile and be willing. He can completely cover his opponent with meteorite rain. Just think about it. Meteorites fell one after another. This would put him on top of a war scene. The party that is the enemy of Yu Xiao will definitely have a huge headache. Certainly. Lin Yan was just sighing. Dark cave path. He rose into the sky and headed straight for the meteorite. Raise your hand. The power of the dark fruit surges. The dark aura swallowed up Yu Xiao's meteorite in an instant. It's funny to say. The ability to influence meteorites with a smile. It looks gaudy. But actually, as long as he is a capable and strong person in New World, almost all of them can be defeated with swordsmanship or other abilities. But this does not rule out the situation of Yu Xiao letting the water go. After all, from beginning to end, just smile and don't talk about fishing. But he never showed his ultimate strength. The gravity fruit has a squeezing effect. Dozens of meteorites are squeezed together, collapsed and compressed, and their density reaches a very terrifying level. If you drop a meteorite in this way, I'm afraid even if the 4 emperors come, they will have to waste some energy. With Lin Yan's current strength, resisting this meteorite is no problem. The meteorite was engulfed. Everything disappeared. With a smile and a long sigh, he said, I lost. Can be picked up and put down. This is the style of Yu Xiao. Give. Suddenly, Yu Xiao noticed that something was thrown from Lin Yan's hand. I caught it subconsciously, and a bean appeared on my palm. This is the one you just took. Although he was curious, out of his trust in Lin Yan, he smiled and ate without saying a word. But the moment I just ate it, as soon as he smiled, his expression suddenly changed. He was shocked to realize that his physical injuries and physical strength were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just like Lin Yan, who was still in a state of embarrassment just now, he suddenly became energetic again. The body feels even more nourished. It's like soaking in a hot spring. Tens of thousands of pores bloom. Indescribably comfortable. What is this? Even with a smile, after taking the fairy beans and feeling the effects brought by the fairy beans, he couldn't help but asked in surprise. In order to win this bet, I had no choice but to use these methods. Don't be surprised. Lin Yan greeted. After all, he did this through unfair means. Only then did he barely win. No problem. Yu Xiao didn't care. He had been completely attracted by Lin Yan's fairy beans. Next, Lin Yan explained the function of fairy beans to Yu Xiao. When I heard that taking one pill can instantly restore your physical strength, Yu Xiao stood up from where he was in surprise. Such a thing is instant recovery of physical strength. If you don't experience it personally. Yu Xiao couldn't believe it. In this world, there is such a thing. Yu Xiao also asked about where the fairy beans were obtained. Lin Yan explained, I met a plant a few years ago and picked a few grains from it. As soon as this statement came out, Yu Xiao seemed to have a conclusion. In the pirate world, encountering something you don't know about, you're right to blame the devil fruit. He smiled and said, I guess that plant must have eaten a devil fruit. Different from humans or other animals. Plants, even those metals, how to take devil fruit. This has always been a place Lin Yan was curious about. When everything is settled, Lin Yan stood up. Yu Xiao joins his own pirate group. Why is he unhappy? Even his tone became particularly excited, and he said, with a smile, from today on, you will be the second crew member on my ship. Welcome, welcome. Nami clapped her hands and followed closely. It was the result of Yu Xiao and Lin Yan's fight. No need to think about it. From then on, their pirate group soared into the sky. It's just a matter of time. Nami was also happy for Lin Yan from the bottom of her heart. Main mission, establish a pirate group. Request, as a pirate, what can you do without a pirate group? Host is requested to have an exquisite ship as a navigation tool as soon as possible. The staff should be at least 5 people including host, and ensure that everyone has influence in the original work. Achieved level A. Reward, S-level lottery. Current progress, 3/5. The mission of establishing a pirate group. It's a little closer to completion. Sensing Lin Yan's enthusiasm. Although you can't see the smile, you can still feel the joy and trust. This is a situation that Yu Xiao never experienced before when he was wandering alone on the sea. From Lin Yan here. His views on pirates gradually changed a lot perhaps. I really made a good decision. By the way, what is the name of our pirate ship? Yu Xiao asked. This. Lin Yan laughed, he really hadn't thought about it, and he continued, we'll wait until a new crew is gathered in the future. Okay. Yu Xiao nodded. Now that he has decided to join Lin Yan's pirate group. From now on, he is also a member of this pirate group. Yu Xiao suddenly had an idea. It's my first time joining you, so I don't have any gifts to give you. But I can see that you want to recruit some powerful crew members to increase the strength of our pirate group. To be honest, I have someone here you can consider. Yu Xiao spoke in a very serious tone. When I heard it, I laughed and wanted to recommend it. Lin Yan was immediately interested, don't say that. I feel very lucky that you agree. Don't be so restrictive in the future. He waved. As far as the current situation is concerned, Yu Xiao can join in. Lin Yan was already very lucky. Cut off marine. This is not something that ordinary people can encounter. After a pause, Yu Xiao asked, who do you recommend? He smiled and said to Lin Yan, this is an old friend I met on the sea in the early years. Although this guy is very nervous, he is not inferior to me in terms of strength. I have fought with him for a day and a night, but in the end there was no winner. It was precisely because of this confrontation that he and I didn't know each other before, and we had a very happy conversation, and we have become close friends since then. Hear this. Lin Yan's ears perked up. Not under a smile? There is no need to say more about the strength of Yu Xiao. General Marine 2 years later. Their strength is not inferior to that of Akainu and Aokiji. He can beat Yu Xiao on par. What does that mean? It means that the other party is at least a general level figure. Lin Yan took a deep breath. Made. When? The general's terrifying strength has reached the point where he can be seen everywhere? Is it really that cheap? But, having said that, if this can bring the other party in, wouldn't he just be getting rich? Chapter 44. What's his name? Lin Yan calmed down and asked quickly. At the time of inquiry, Lin Yan narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, a flash of lightning flashed in his mind. It was as if he had an epiphany. In Lin Yan's heart, a figure emerged. Could it be Aramaki? He said the name with a smile. Really? Lin Yan's face showed a true look. The strength of the general. I am an old acquaintance with Yu Xiao. Think about it for a moment. This range can be reduced to extremely small. Yu Xiao noticed Lin Yan's strange behavior and asked curiously, Captain, Do you know his name? Heard? More than just heard. Said with a smile. Lin Yan was immediately excited. My hands couldn't help but tremble. Just now he took Yu Xiao under his command. If there is one more Eremo now. That's it. There are 2 general-level combat capabilities on board. New World just pushed and walked sideways. How could he not be excited? Cut off Marine? Is this a cut-off? Wal Kakuzu was poached by himself. Ahem. Lin Yan coughed twice and quickly returned to his previous expression, but his heart was still pounding. He denied, I don't know. I don't know. Real. Yu Xiao suddenly remembered that when Lin Yan saw him, he said that he had admired his name for a long time. At the time I thought it might be a coincidence. You can think about it a little bit. It's easy to see the exposed chicken feet. In order to avoid overthinking with a smile, Lin Yan changed the subject and said, by the way, where is this Huang Mu you are talking about? Hearing this, Yu Xiao fell silent. He heard a while ago that I was planning to join Marine, and he is about to leave. Lin Yan looked shocked. What? Speaking of which, we were both planning to join Marine's camp, but we happened to meet you. Yu Xiao explained. Do you know where he is now? Lin Yan asked again. I know. Yu Xiao once went to Huang Mu and knew where he lived. Without further delay, let's set off quickly. This would allow Aramaki to join Marine. Aren't my intestines going to turn green? Lin Yan didn't want this to happen at all. Just do it. Lin Yan directly asked Nami to turn the boat around and drive the light boat, and he was going to go straight to Huang Mu. No. At this moment, Yu Xiao shook his head. The 2 were invited to join Marine together. He has already set off. Aramaki himself is also impatient. How could he sit still and wait for death? He smiled and said, I have already set off. Aramaki should also have left the place where he lives. Maybe he has arrived in Marine now. This. Lin Yan was speechless for a long time, but he still insisted, you have to give it a try, right? He still didn't want to give up Huang Mu. The general's fighting power. If this is a miss 80 years later, when I was just buried, I could kick open the coffin board, sit up and slap myself, saying, I really deserve to die. But our ship shouldn't be fast enough. The boat underfoot can drive automatically, and the speed is pretty good, but it will take at least a few days to reach Aramaki's residence. When they arrived at their destination, they knew without thinking that the building would be empty. The kind where the dishes are cold. Let's just run over there. Lin Yan couldn't hold it. If he ran over directly, he didn't know if it would be late. I have an idea, suddenly. Yu Xiao raised his hand and began to use the gravity fruit. They all have ships floating in the air. Use your own power to control the ship and fly over. This is the fastest way. Yu Xiao said, it will be faster to use my ability. Good. Lin Yan agreed without saying a word. Next. Their ship sailed rapidly through the sky. Knowing that the situation was urgent, Yu Xiao also used his own strength. Feeling the strong wind in my ears. Nami squatted in the corner and covered her ears. Simply with Lin Yan's help. Nami could barely whisper against the biting cold wind. The flight lasted a full day and night. Finally. Yu Xiao took Lin Yan to the destination. So galloping. Even a smile makes me sweat, and my breathing becomes very uneven. Simply. They arrived at Aramaki's residence. Where it enters the eye. This is a mountain forest. The surrounding vegetation is swaying very regularly. Just a glance. Lin Yan was sure that this was a puppy with the ability of sensen fruit. Directly in front of the forest. There is a tree-lined path. At the end of the tree-lined path is a residence made of thatched cottages standing in the middle of the lake. Captain, that's right there. Yu Xiao pointed to the thatched house. Without saying a word, Lin Yan disappeared from the spot with a whoosh. In the blink of an eye. He came to the door of the thatched house. Open the door and take a look. It's empty inside. It's over, this guy has indeed left here. Seeing this scene, I smiled and my heart went cold. As for Lin Yan. After seeing everything empty in the house. His face, which was happy at the beginning, gradually turned gloomy. In the end. Is it still a step too late? He really planned to take Yu Xiao and Huang Mu and make them his crew. Never expected it. Still can't catch up. Well. Yu Xiao shook his head and blamed himself, you blame me. If I hadn't made that bet with you, Captain, if I had come here as soon as possible, I might not have had time. Lin Yan was also very disappointed, but he shook his head. This has nothing to do with you. It would be great if I could find Huang Mu. If I can't find him, it will only prove that I am not destined to be with him. Yu Xiao sat on the stone table next to him. I traveled in a hurry for a day and a night, but in the end this was the result. This is a bit hard to accept. Hey! Just then, Nami suddenly discovered that there were several footprints on the tree-lined path. The footprints were neither deep nor shallow, as if they had just been stepped on. What's wrong? Lin Yan asked. These footprints, Lin Yan, I feel that the person you are looking for has just left here. Nami explained to Lin Yan and Yu Xiao. Lin Yan quickly stepped forward and looked at the footprints Nami pointed at. Thought for a moment. Anyway, we have already reached this point, we have come, why not give it a try? Lin Yan said, which of you knows the marine branch nearby? Upon hearing this, Nami took out his map, let me take a look. I want to become the world's top navigator from now on. How could Nami not be carrying a map? The map is not very detailed. But it is a branch of marine after all. What is recorded above is quite clear. Take a quick glance. Soon. Nami then found the way forward for the marine branch. Look at Nami's appearance. Lin Yan also sighed, it has to be you. Nami smiled, I will try my best to help you. After searching for a while, Nami quickly found the path, found it. Yu Xiao said in surprise, you don't want to go to the marine branch and snatch Aramaki out of it. This is absolutely impossible. Although he came to Lin Yan's pirate group, available for a marine, Yu Xiao still doesn't want to be their enemy. You are overthinking it. Aramaki must have left not long ago. We chase him along the road to the marine branch. We should still be able to catch up. Lin Yan had exactly this idea. After finalizing his decision, he took Nami and Yu Xiao and chased after him. Chapter 45. Unless marine invites you intentionally. If not. Generally speaking, there is only one step to join marine, which is to report to the nearest marine branch. Then start as a recruit and slowly be observed to see if you have enough strength. Once you pass the assessment and gain a foothold in marine, and if your strength is enough, then promotion in marine will be smooth. Lin Yan and Yu Xiao chased along the nearest marine branch road at extremely fast speeds. About half an hour later, in the mountains and jungles, Lin Yan and Yu Xiao discovered the figure of a man. It's him. Although Yu Xiao couldn't see clearly, he could still feel the aura emanating from Huang Mu. Hear this. Lin Yan felt happy. Fortunately, we arrived in time. Aramaki was not allowed to arrive at the marine branch immediately. Think of this. The two of them fell from the sky with a whoosh. Sudden movement. Naturally, Aramaki looked wary. With a cigar in his mouth, Huang Mu suddenly raised his head. Who? Take a closer look. I found out after laughing. Aramu was stunned for a moment, and then he felt happy. A smile? Why are you here? But he saw Huang Mu with a smile on his face. Open your arms. I gave Yu Xiao a big hug directly. Feeling Aramu's enthusiasm, he smiled awkwardly and said, there are still people here. Even so, there is also some lingering fear in the smile. Fortunately, I caught up. If only it were a step later. I'm afraid I really won't be able to eat at the table. Speaking of which, I see you are in a hurry. Where are you going? Huang Mu looked at Lin Yan and Yu Xiao and found that they looked like they had traveled several days. He asked curiously. Of course I'm here to find you. Yu Xiao gestured towards Huang Mu. Looking for me? You're not looking for me to drink, are you? Aramaki laughed loudly and said boldly, although we had a close fight last time, you may not be my opponent when it comes to drinking ability. Yu Xiao is not very fond of drinks. But Aramu is different. It has a lot of fruits in itself. It is not impossible to go without food for many years. And looking across the sea, who wouldn't be interested in drinks? The same is true for Aramaki. Even if you don't eat, you still can't do without drinking. Then why not give it a try? Yu Xiao originally had such a plan. He stated his purpose abruptly. I'm afraid the other party won't be able to accept it for a while. Drinking is different. For men, there is nothing that cannot be discussed over a wine table. looking at Aramaki's familiar arms and legs. Lin Yan smiled faintly, and he followed. Nearby town. In a tavern. Lin Yan smiled, and the three of Huang Mu gathered together. 10 jars of drinks were served. Each jar is filled with aged wine, and is as big as a vat. The aroma of the wine is fragrant and spreads for miles. Huang Mu glanced at Lin Yan and asked, "Who is this?" Yu Xiao was about to explain, but Lin Yan waved his hand and said, "As the saying goes, 1,000 cups is too little for a close friend. You drink first and don't worry about me." Oh, he is still a cultural person. Huang Mu was quite surprised and said, "Okay, then I will catch up with Yu Xiao for now." Hearing Lin Yan's words, he smiled and raised the wine glass in his hand. The sounds of collisions followed. The two of them drank heavily. Drinking and singing, extremely bold and unrestrained. It didn't take long for the two of them to waste all the 10 jars of wine. Lin Yan was not polite and continued to let the store serve wine. The store owner was also a little confused. Looking at Niu Yin's smile and Huang Mu, his Adam's apple couldn't help but roll a few times. How can anyone drink like this? But looking at Lin Yan throwing out the golden jewelry, he looked like he was not short of money. The store owner also quickly handed over 10 jars of wine again. What Huang Mu said is true. On drinking, Yu Xiao is really no match for him. Almost 50 years old, his face turned red when he smiled, but Aramu's expression was as usual, but there was a hint of confusion in his eyes, but he could still stay awake. It was really hard to laugh. In order to help Lin Yan recruit Huang Mu, it can be said that it is powerless to resist. Faced with Aramu's clinking glasses, everyone is welcome. Even Aramaki followed up and said in surprise, "Okay, smile, you didn't have the drinking capacity you have now. How can you drink so much after not seeing each other for a few days?" Yu Xiao said calmly, "I haven't been convinced by you yet, come again." Good. Seeing Yu Xiao still persisting, Aramaki's eyes lit up. How many years? How many years have you not drank so heartily? When drinking, you still have to look at people. After the opponent smiled, Aramu felt as if he had been given a shot of chicken blood, his whole body was on edge. When he drank to his heart's content, Aramu laughed unceremoniously. The two of them continued to be furious, and the number of wine jars had reached 100. To avoid being disturbed, Lin Yan even booked the entire restaurant. Of course money is important. Compared to a strong man like Huang Mu, no matter how much money you spend, Lin Yan will be happy. Not long after, when the number of wine jars reached 200, Yu Xiao and Huang Mu gradually slowed down. He smiled and burped, while Aramu's face flushed. And the atmosphere, it was almost brewed by Yu Xiao. Seeing Aramaki's happy expression, he smiled and asked, "Aramaki, are you going to join Marine this time?" Aramu drank up the rest of the wine in the wine jar, and looked sideways with confused eyes. "Hey? Strange, why do you ask this question? Can't you just ask?" "Ha ha ha, you kid, weren't you the one who persuaded me to join Marine?" "What? Are you ready to report to Marine with me now?" Yu Xiao fell silent for a while. Indeed. When I first met Aramaki, he mentioned it to Huang Mudian. I may join Marine in the future. The target of a smile upon hearing this is Marine. A confidant is hard to find. Aramaki also became interested. He simply refused to do anything and decided to join Marine's camp with Yu Xiao. This. After a while, I smiled and didn't know how to say it. Anyway, we have reached this point, and he no longer hides his smile. He pointed to Lin Yan beside him and said, "Let me introduce it to you." When he was drinking just now, Huang Mu had already noticed Lin Yan. Faced with his own glass clinking, Lin Yan also refused. This naturally aroused Aramu's admiration. Being able to drink and having such similar interests made him couldn't help but look at Lin Yan more. However, from the beginning to the end, Huang Mu still didn't know Lin Yan's identity. At this time, Yu Xiao said, "This is Lin Yan, he is my captain." Aramu held the wine jar, originally waiting for Yu Xiao's introduction. But after saying this with a smile, this also caused him to turn his head suddenly, and he couldn't help but pause in the movements of his hands. Immediately, he looked towards Yu Xiao with disbelief. Chapter 46. Crack. A crisp slap sounded in the tavern. After hearing Yu Xiao's words, Aramaki even thought that he had drank too much and had hallucinated. Captain? In the pirate world, there is almost only one answer to what can be called these two words. Of course, there are countless captains of those pirate groups across the entire Grand Line. It has become commonplace. But the problem is, that is for others after all. As Aramaki, who is very familiar with Yuxiao's character, he couldn't imagine it. One day, I can actually hear such words from Yuxiao's mouth. No. Am I crazy? Are we separated from each other? Am I out of my mind? Aramu couldn't believe his ears. But I felt the burning pain on my face. Aramaki realized that this was not an illusion. At this moment, even the flushed face and the strong smell of alcohol on his body were mostly dissipated because of Yuxiao's words. Just a smile, you. Not to mention, Yuxiao's words really put Huangmu out of control. His eyes were dull, his expression was astonished, and his eyes were as white as copper bells. With a glimmer of hope, Huangmu then asked, Yuxiao, are you kidding, right? Yuxiao glanced at Lin Yan and shook his head firmly, I'm not kidding, this is indeed my captain. I came here specifically to see you. With a smile he spoke again. After checking back and forth several times, Aramaki was finally sure. A smile. He really joined the pirates. As a friend who has known me for many years. How could Aramu not know Yuxiao's original ideals and obsessions? Otherwise, he would not choose Marine, and would like to continue on the path of Marine. And Aramaki could clearly feel Yuxiao's obsession to change the world. Seeing such an ideal with a smile, Aramaki also decided to accompany him. See how high a smile can reach in the end. But I never thought about it. The late emperor died in the middle of his career before he started his business. The two agreed to join Marine together. He has already set off. There was only one step away from Marine. What's the result? You're riding a horse. Came here early in the morning and told me that you joined the pirate group? Why? Listen. Is this human language? Really? Aramaki was stunned. Well. Now that the matter has come to this, he no longer dodges with a smile, he said, I don't want to hide it from you anymore. In fact, the reason why I come here to drink with you is that besides wanting to have a good drink with you, I still have selfish motives. In the final analysis after all, I still hope to invite you to join our pirate group before you join Marine. Speaking of which, Yuxiao lowered his head in shame. Even if it was him, when he said this. It's all a bit hard to talk about. No, I don't care about that. Huangmu shook his head, he really didn't care about the purpose of Yuxiao. At least, Huangmu drank the wine happily. What concerned him most was. Huangmu looked at Lin Yan aside. The man in front of me. How did he recruit Yuxiao into it? To know. Aramu knows better than anyone how the eyes of a smile destroy themselves. In other words, Yuxiao's obsession is deeper than anyone else's. Under such circumstances, Lin Yan not only made Yuxiao change his mind, but even volunteered to join his pirate group. If we say it was just a friend relationship brought about by a smile before. So now. Huangmu became very interested in Lin Yan. Actually. Regarding which force to join. Aramaki doesn't care at all. He is free and loose, and in terms of obsession, he is not as deep-rooted as Yuxiao. Looking at Lin Yan, he asked, what's your name? I just introduced it with a smile. It's just a pity. Aramaki was attracted by the word captain. As a result, the first half of the paragraph was ignored. Lin Yan. Lin Yan repeated. Lin Yan. Hearing this name, Aramu felt that it sounded familiar. After thinking for a while, he showed a look of realization. I said, why does it look so familiar? It turns out to be you. About Lin Yan's deeds. How could Aramaki not know? He rebelled against the whitebeards and attacked the celestial dragons. Even Marine General Akainu was defeated by him. Think of this. Huangmu nodded secretly. No wonder Yuxiao agreed to join the other party's pirate group for the first time. There are some means. Certainly. But these are not enough. Huangmu opened a wine jar, took it up and took a sip. He heard a clang sound and pressed the wine jar on the table. He looked at Lin Yan and asked, I have a question that I want to ask you to answer. Confused. Lin Yan looked at the other party's posture, calmed down and said, what's the problem? Aramu looked at Yuxiao and then at Lin Yan, with an 8-trigram smile on his face. I'm just curious, how did you convince Yuxiao? And, since you were able to convince him, I think you must know Yuxiao. His past, and the story of his eyes. Lin Yan nodded, and while he secretly said that Huang Mu was rough and subtle, he did not forget to sigh that he was actually like this 8 trigrams. After thinking for a moment, he said concisely, prescribe the right medicine to the case. Different from ordinary people, people like Yuxiao. Being tough won't work. Maybe it's tough, you're not his opponent yet. If you proceed step by step, go straight to the topic, and point out the key points, you will have unexpected results. But just this acquaintance with Aramaki now. Lin Yan could roughly tell that his personality was completely opposite to Yuxiao's. If you want to recruit Aramu, you must at least be tough. Prescribe the right medicine. Huang Mu was stunned by Lin Yan's cold and ambiguous answer, but he wanted to persuade Yuxiao, and it seemed that this method really worked. He continued, I heard from Yuxiao that you came to me this time because you wanted to persuade Yuxiao. Can I also recruit you to join your pirate group? Lin Yan nodded and said, yes. Aramaki took another sip of wine, wiped the drink from his mouth, and asked, why are you looking for me? Lin Yan said very straightforwardly, there are 2 reasons. First, it is the idea of laughing. Second, I also hope to have the help of a strong person like you. Ha 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 ha. Praise is useful anywhere. Hearing that Lin Yan spoke so highly of himself, Huang Mu smiled from ear to ear, you kid, you are very much to my liking. Lin Yan thought it was interesting, what do you think? Aramaki looked at Lin Yan, his eyes becoming sharper and dazzling, and he added, I'm curious, can your little pirate ship be able to carry Yuxiao and me? Lin Yan's expression remained normal, but his heart was filled with turmoil. Feeling the change in Huang Mu's momentum, he resisted without getting angry and pushed back. While the invisible confrontation was going on, Lin Yan calmly said, try it. Chapter 47. Know the cause and effect. He also knew the purpose of Lin Yan coming to find him. He took out a cigar from somewhere and lit it skillfully. After taking a strong puff, he stared at Lin Yan and said, ha 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 ha, you really like me. Feeling the aura coming from Lin Yan, Huang Mu said again, since Yuxiao came here in person, and for you, he is even more hands-on. If I don't give him a face, wouldn't I be ashamed of my status as an old friend? Some contact. Huang Mu could naturally sense that Yuxiao was paving the way for Lin Yan as much as possible. Such a move made Aramu couldn't help but touch his chin. A little curiosity arose in my heart. What is so attractive about this guy? It actually provoked a smile that helped him reach this point. So, you agree? Lin Yan asked eagerly. Agreed. Aramaki nodded without hesitation. Hear the words. Lin Yan felt happy and his eyes became clearer. I thought Aramu would refuse without saying a word. Never thought about it. He actually agreed so simply. Even when he smiled, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He has tried his best to find Aramu and achieve this step. Just don't know. What method will Lin Yan use to recruit Huang Mu? What's the result? All the words have yet to be spoken. I just drank hundreds of jars of wine. Huang Mu waved his hand and agreed directly. It seemed that he noticed the strange look of the 2 people. Aramaki laughed. Adding wine and cigarettes, his magic power was boundless. After taking a few sips of wine, he said, accident. There's nothing surprising. I joined Marine just casually. After wandering outside for such a long time, I also wanted to find a place to sit down. Whether you invite me to join Marine or the pirates, I don't have too many ideas. Listen to Aramu's words. Yuxiao fully agrees with this. In his impression, Aramaki is indeed such a straightforward person. Lin Yan couldn't help but secretly thought that this was really simple. But the idea just occurred to him. Aramaki's next words. But it made his whole expression change. Aramaki said, however, just joining your pirate group is too cheap. When chasing those beautiful girls, you have to play this trick of refusing to welcome them. Joining your pirate group is not impossible. There is one condition. Lin Yan had already made up his mind. No matter what Huang Mu proposed, as long as it was within his ability, he asked, what conditions, aside? Yuxiao noticed that there was something in Huang Mu's words. He recalled the first time he met Aramaki. No fight, no acquaintance. Realizing something was wrong, he smiled and said quickly, "Huang Mu, don't tell me that you want to." "Good." Aramaki nodded heavily, glanced at him and smiled. After all, this old friend understood him. He stared at Lin Yan with burning eyes and said with a smile, "If you can beat me, what if I get on the boat with you?" This life. Aramaki doesn't have many hobbies. Drink, sleep, beautiful girls, it is best to feed them directly, lie motionless on the bed and enjoy themselves. Of course, when he meets some strong men worthy of his attention, Aramu is also very happy to fight against them. Lin Yan is one of them. I heard that Lin Yan was now offered a bounty of 2 billion by Marine, and Marine General Sakaski once hated him at his hands. Such people. How could Aramaki not be interested? He would like to take a look. Lin Yan in front of him. On this magnificent voyage. How far can the strength reach? Lin Yan originally planned to meet all Huang Mu's requirements, even if it was a little excessive, it didn't matter. But as he said these words, he came out. Lin Yan fell silent. The corner of his mouth twitched and he couldn't help but said, "Hit again." "What's wrong? Isn't it possible? Also, what does beating again mean?" Huang Mu was puzzled. "Not long ago, when I joined his pirate group, I had a fight with him." Yu Xiao explained. "Winning or losing?" Aramaki 8 trigram's heart suddenly rose. As long as it's the 8 trigrams of a smile, he is more persistent than anyone else. "I lost." A smile does not hide it. "You actually lost." Aramu glanced at him in surprise and smiled. Although he was surprised, it soon made him squint his eyes. "So, if I beat him, wouldn't I be better than you?" "You could say that." He smiled and said. Lin Yan watched the conversation between the two. Especially after Aramaki was defeated by him, even if he heard a smile. Huang Mu's eyes were all bright and clear, as if dew had appeared after a long drought, not to mention how excited he was. Lin Yan was depressed. Not long after the fight with Yu Xiao, he was about to have another encounter with Huang Mu. If it's an ordinary person, that's it. The point is, each of these two people is one of the top combat powers in the New World. Although I have taken fairy beans before, recovered most of his injuries. But the mental fatigue made Lin Yan complain endlessly. But he also knows. Now it's just a step away from inviting Aramaki on board. As long as you cross this hurdle, your career will be smooth sailing. Pulling himself together, Lin Yan said, "Come on. We are in a small town after all. If Lin Yan and Huang Mu got into a fight, this place would definitely be devastated." In order to avoid this situation, Lin Yan, Yu Xiao and Huang Mu came to the back mountain. There are many trees and vegetation here, and it is temporarily an uninhabited land, making it the most suitable venue for fighting. Now, Lin Yan and Huang Mu lined up. Instead, Yu Xiao became an audience, watching the battle not far away. "My hands and feet are not smart, so be careful," Lin Yan reminded. "It's best to use all your strength. If you beat me, what if I call you from now on?" Huang Mu's fighting spirit was rising steadily. When the strength reaches a critical value, it's too late, it's fast. Aramu took action without saying a word. In the blink of an eye, the earth cracked open, and tens of thousands of vines emerged from the earth. The vines grew at an astonishing speed, reaching the point where they could cover the sky and the sun in just a few moments. Sawdust flew everywhere and dust flew in the air. In the bushes, Huang Mu stepped on the ground, and his whole body turned into an arrow, quickly approaching Lin Yan. At the same time, Huang Mu reversed his hand, and a spear made of vines appeared in his hand. There was a cold light flashing on the spearhead, shining brightly, and the mere fluctuation could cause several ripples. Holding a spear in his hand, Huang Mu stabbed Lin Yan in the head. Chapter 48. Facing Aramu's attack. A ray of red light flashed in Lin Yan's eyes. The domineering power of seeing and hearing is quickly activated. Catching Huang Mu's footprints, Lin Yan wanted to jump into the air to avoid Huang Mu's shot. Huang Mu was very fast, but in this regard, Lin Yan was not much behind. He jumped up, trying to avoid Huang Mu's attack. But the next second, tangled! Huang Mu shouted loudly. The ground beneath Lin Yan's feet tore apart, and several vines grew out of it. With lightning speed, it attached to Lin Yan's leg and locked him firmly in place. Watch this scene. Lin Yan was shocked and subconsciously shouted, "Damn it, my own mother is haunting me, look up." Huang Mu's spear was getting closer and closer to him. Simply at this critical moment, Lin Yan used the power of the dark fruit to swallow the vines under his feet. Only then did he narrowly avoid Aramu's attack. Did it miss? What a pity. Aramu looked regretful. Is it necessary to strike so harshly? Lin Yan said. If I hadn't avoided it just now, I'm afraid I have to poke a transparent hole in my body. You are the one who defeated Yu Xiao. I know how strong he is. Huang Mu explained, if Lin Yan couldn't survive this move of his, how could he get on his ship? After a moment of pause, Aramaki continued, besides, I really want to defeat you. Said it before. Yu Xiao lost to Lin Yan. Aramu really likes to compete with Yu Xiao in this aspect. At this moment, Lin Yan has become a unit of measurement in Huang Mu's eyes. After all, he is still a strong man at the level of a general. Lin Yan said secretly in his heart. I took a deep breath and braced myself 200%. Next. To prove one's ability is better than a smile. Regarding Lin Yan, a unit of measurement, Huang Mu could be said to have used all his strength to attack. Sensen fruit is on full fire. The surrounding itself is deep mountains and old forests. Even the environment has become a means to improve Aramu's personal combat power. Under his attack, Lin Yan was a little embarrassed to resist. But he also parried all of Huang Mu's abilities. Even as the two sides fought, Lin Yan's combat experience increased exponentially, and he even briefly suppressed Huang Mu. Good boy. Aramaki was surprised and surprised. He can feel it. Lin Yan's strength was far behind his own. But when fighting against him, his strength was improving rapidly, and the distance between the two was getting closer. Don't mention how surprised Aramaki was. This talent. It's too powerful. Not only Huang Mu was surprised, but Lin Yan was also surprised. Combat is the stage that can best hone a person's strength. Before, he had only a little knowledge of it and had doubts about it. After all, after staying in the Whitebeard pirates for so long, it was not like he had never fought against the division captains and main cotters, but he had never had any so-called insights or epiphanies. He even once thought that this was not the case. A bunch of guys use it to fool people. Like a classic quote from an unnamed Mr. Ma. I have never touched money, but I am very fond of money spreading my hands. Not interested. Now. With top talent coming. Lin Yanzhe finally realized the situation of those strong men, and secretly sighed in his heart that he had been sitting in a well and looking at the sky. Think about it too. The premise of saying that you are not interested in money is because you already have it, and the amount has reached a level that is difficult for ordinary people to understand. The enlightened monk is not interested in cassocks because there are already hundreds or thousands of cassocks in the treasure house. While others are struggling, he himself has already experienced the warmth and coldness in them. After all, it's still because of talent. But today's shortcomings have been smoothed out by the system's rewards. Lin Yan became stronger as he fought. Instead of retreating, he advanced and directly dragged Aramu to continue the high-intensity fight. Hiss. Such a result naturally made Aramu take a breath of cold air. His original intention was just to defeat Lin Yan. Thus feeling proud in front of a smile. What he never expected was, have you actually become Lin Yan's punching bag? Why? Use me as a punching bag. You are really brave. Although he felt aggrieved, Aramu would not give in so easily. He also has his own dignity and his own spirit. The more Lin Yan shows good combat prowess, the more his combat prowess will soar. Aramaki transformed into a Super Saiyan. The power explodes in full force. The fight between the two sides became more and more intense. You came and I went back and forth, regardless of the outcome. Certainly. Aramu took the initiative throughout the whole process. He even relied on the power of sensen fruit to force Lin Yan into desperate situations several times. But even so, even Huang Mu couldn't break through the last layer of shackles. Lin Yan fought back several times. It's so intense. Next to him, there was a smile with a neither salty nor bland tone, which sounded strange. After a long fight, Huang Mu's breath was already unstable. Although reduced to a sandbag. But I have to admit it. The strength of Lin Yan in front of him was far beyond his imagination. Although Huang Mu was panting, the look in his eyes was brighter than before, and his arrogance was rising steadily. To be able to have such strength in the first half of the Great Route, and to force me here, such a force, Lin Yan, I approve of you. For Lin Yan, Aramaki didn't pay much attention to it at first. Even if he defeated Yuxiao, it only made Aramaki a little surprised. To be fair, Huang Mu clearly knows what kind of temperament a smile represents. If you can, stop, and if you can, take a step back. He doesn't care about his own situation, but is always thinking about others. In other words, in Aramu's eyes, Lin Yan just managed to win with a smile and a half-trick through trickery. Certainly, Lin Yan didn't know what Huang Mu was thinking. If you know it. The process was messy, but the results were pretty much the same. I had indeed taken advantage of it. So, Aramaki didn't put in much energy either. But as Lin Yan pressed forward step by step, his talent exploded, and he followed closely and gritted his teeth. Gradually, Aramaki also realized the seriousness of the problem. The strength of the man in front of him was indeed extraordinary, far beyond his expectations. When he reacted. But it was already too late. Just like Yuxiao, Huang Mu looked at Lin Yan unconsciously. How old is Lin Yan now? Around 20 years old. His strength is almost catching up with his own. No wonder Yuxiao chose Lin Yan. Just the potential he has shown. The future will definitely be bright. Let's talk about Lin Yan. Listening to Aramaki's series of sighs. Maybe it was because of his feelings, but in Lin Yan's ears, it became a little strange. Is there something missing? Yes. Without it, I would call you the strongest. Lin Yan and Huang Mu were in a collision of general level strength. Every time they collide, the sky is like a drum, and the aftermath shocks hundreds of sea miles. This is the back hill of the town, and there is a marine branch in the town. There was movement from the mountains behind. Naturally, the residents of the town and the marines in the branch raised their heads. Why is there such a big movement? What happened? Is there a fight? The residents may have had little idea, but the marine leaders suddenly became serious. Many powerful marines immediately rushed towards the source of the sound. Chapter 49. The people present at marine immediately moved toward the source of the sound. Soon, they arrived at the scene, where it enters the eye. The fierce battle between Lin Yan and Huang Mu has reached a fever pitch. On one side is the dark fruit that fills the sky and is pitch black. On one side, vines are growing crazily. With a clap of your hands, you can summon the dense fruits of wood style. Just a touch, the aftermath of the splash can flatten the surrounding mountains, rivers, and vegetation, and the entire island is rumbling. Even if he smiles, he can't help but raise his hand to block the fierce wind and rain that is coming towards his face. Just arrived at the scene. Looking at the scene in front of me. The expressions of the people in the marine branch began to change. Who are those two people? Is this really something ordinary people can do? I also spent some time under Lieutenant General Marine, but even they are probably nothing more than this. This. Oh my god! Voices of exclamation arose one after another. Seeing the fight between Lin Yan and Huang Mu, many people couldn't help but open their mouths in surprise. Being able to make it here naturally proves that this group of marines is quite capable. But facing this doomsday scene of destruction and destruction, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. If they were thrown into the scene, would they survive for 1 minute? The answer is of course no. But, in the end, it's still a battle between the strong. To be able to see such a grand occasion, even if you can't experience it personally, you can still learn a lot from it. Some marines began to look at it seriously. Don't squint your eyes and don't dare to slack off in the slightest. Hey! The eyes of the masses are sharp. They originally wanted to observe and learn some skills from it. But looking at it, many people noticed something was wrong. Looking at Lin Yan, who was wrapped in a dark aura. Although I can't see the face clearly, but the overwhelming impact of darkness gave them a very familiar feeling. After thinking for a moment, some people recognized this situation. A marine exclaimed, "Wait, isn't this the dark fruit?" Dark fruit? I want to ask who in this sea currently has the ability of this dark fruit. Of course it was Lin Yan who caused a bloody storm on the Grand Route a while ago. Regarding the name Lin Yan, not to mention how familiar Marine was. In order to capture the pirate Lin Yan, they, Marine, put a lot of effort into it. Even General Akainu, the Marine known as the strongest Marine in Malinfando, came forward in person. Of course. Although Akainu lost in the end, Marine's morale plummeted. This also made that confrontation the battle that made Lin Yan famous. Let the four emperors, let them Marine, let the world look at this name again. No one expected it. The man who made waves in the new world now appeared here unexpectedly. Why does the pirate Lin Yan appear here? Also, who is the person who is his opponent? Does any of you know? I don't know. What kind of strength is pirate Lin Yan? This guy even defeated our general in his hands. I didn't expect that there would be someone who could fight him to this extent. Who is that green-haired guy? Looking at this posture, pirate Lin Yan has already become a general, and his opponent is not even worse than Lin Yan. This is not a new world with big waves. This is just the first half of the Grand Line. I really didn't expect that this place would be so crouching tiger, hidden dragon. I suddenly feel that there is no point in practicing in Marine. How can we compete with such a strong person? This Marine, Lao Zi doesn't have to wait any longer. Hiss, this kid is so scary. While the Marines lamented that Lin Yan was so powerful, and that Marine General Akainu was worthy of their reputation, and even became famous in one battle, they were even more surprised by Lin Yan's opponent, Akainu. Lin Yan has already become famous, and his reputation has spread throughout the Great Sea route. But Huang Mu is still an unknown person even now. This green-haired man is as powerful as the pirate Lin Yan, and Lin Yan is stronger than their general Akainu. Doesn't that mean that this green-haired man is stronger than their general? Damn it! When are strong men at the level of generals so commonplace? The fight between Lin Yan and Huang Mu. Ever since we finished the drinking session, we have been fighting until sunset. Then he hit the mountains from sunset to midnight, and in the blink of an eye he hit 3 poles again. Yes. Both sides have been fighting for a whole day and night. It was just such a high-intensity fight with Aramaki. Lin Yan's attributes in all aspects, combined with his peak talent, have been improved by 2 levels. Feel the changes in your body. Really. Cultivation is important. But if there is not enough practice, it will be in vain. Relying on fighting with Aramaki for a long time with all his strength. Although Lin Yan's physical strength was almost exhausted. But the benefits obtained are very huge. To know. It has reached the point of LV80. It is difficult and dangerous to advance to a lower class. Not to mention 2 of them at once. Now. The gap between Lin Yan and Huang Mu. It has been further compensated, and it is no longer as far apart as before. Character, Lin Yan talent, reaching the peak fruit, dark fruit LV82 ability, physical skills LV83 haki, armed haki LV83, knowledge haki LV82, conqueror's haki LV82 items, any door, fairy beans X7 after all. Watching himself being whipped like a top by Lin Yan. The point is, I didn't realize anything at all. On the contrary, Lin Yan was rising steadily. There is no harm without contrast. Even if the 2 of them still can't decide the winner. Even though the 2 are still indistinguishable. But Aramaki is already a little overwhelmed. Physical and psychological devastation. Make him miserable. What's more? The world is so big, and even before I go out to have a good adventure, I have to fight for my life. In order to fight for a breath, I spend half my life in this bad place to break the environment to determine the outcome. Huang Mu was not that stupid. He waved his hands violently and shouted, "No more fighting! Aren't you going to fight?" Although Huang Mu was in a sorry state, Lin Yan was not much better either. He was already soaked in sweat and was out of breath, as if he was about to collapse in the next second. Yes. Lin Yan now. It all depends on one breath. The main reason is that I finally met an experienced baby like Aramu. If you don't make money, you won't make anything. But now. He had indeed reached his limit. I can't hold it any longer. Actually. If Aramaki continues to fight with him, he will definitely lose without using the fairy beans. Now he has reached his limit. Damn it. Akainu and Aokiji are 2 hanging hair. How did you spend 10 days and 10 nights on Binghuo Island? Don't think I don't know that you have reached your limit. I shouldn't have challenged you to compete. It was a double torture. In 1 day and 1 night, even if you put an Iron Man here, he would probably fall apart. At this moment, Aramaki no longer had any thoughts of fighting. However, Huang Mu was very satisfied with Lin Yan's strength. He is young, improves his strength quickly, has extraordinary talents, and his devil fruit has been developed in an orderly manner. This confrontation. He had a great time playing. The last time I encountered a hardy situation was the last time. Aramu sat on the ground. Do you have any wine? Yuxiao has been waiting nearby for a long time. He threw the wine to Huang Mu. Aramaki opened the lid. It started pouring in tons and tons. Chapter 50. Guys, don't you want to take me to Marine? Although the fight with Huang Mu has reached its limit, Lin Yan will not fall down just yet. Moreover, around here, there are many Marines watching the battle. Lin Yan dodged, carried his exhausted body and came to the front of the group of Marines and shouted. Hearing Lin Yan's words, the hundreds of Marines present, including several major generals and brigadiers, all took half a step back. A major general said bravely, "You, don't talk nonsense, we never said such things." Another brigadier general followed closely and said, "We are just passing by." That's right, just passing by. When we hear the noise here, let's come over and take a look. This place doesn't belong to your family. If you can come, can't we come? Pirate Lin Yan, since you haven't caused widespread casualties, we won't arrest you this time. It's best to leave here as soon as possible. If not, don't blame us for being rude. Yes, let's go. With the Major General and Brigadier General taking the lead in giving in, the people below also started to take the lead. It doesn't matter whether you can beat him or not. At least you can't lose face. The name of the person whose shadow is the tree. Although they had heard of Lin Yan's past strength. But in the final analysis, it is only to the extent that I have heard of it. In this fight, Lin Yan and Huang Mu fought with high intensity from beginning to end. No matter how conceited these major generals and brigadiers are, I have to admit that I am definitely no match for the opponent. Once the move is made, the opponent can use absolute strength to wipe out all their marines. Even though my heart is burdened with the desire for justice, the punishment of evil, and the aversion to the cruelty of the pirates. But they also have to use reason to restrain themselves and restrain impulsive desires. The constant warning in my heart, the fierce one in front of me. Absolutely not to touch. Listening to everyone's words, Lin Yan was a little dumbfounded. But there was a persistent look on his face, and he suddenly smiled strangely. He stared at the Major General in front of him and the Marines behind them. He said calmly, "Don't you really want to try? I was offered a bounty of 2 billion belly by your Marines. Isn't there a brave man who can win such a huge bounty? Now you Marines have issued a killing order for me. Don't let me go if you encounter me. Besides, I am exhausted and have almost reached the point of recovery. As long as you move your fingers, you may be able to achieve great feats. Don't you really want to give it a try?" Lin Yan's words were like a charming succubus whispering in her ears, and the fragrance she exhaled made her heart itch unbearably. Coupled with such a high reward, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and such a dying situation, it has reached the point of crumbling. Don't tell me yet. The other ordinary Marines were really moved. Yes. Now is the best time to kill the pirate in front of you. If we take action, I believe it will be no problem to capture the crumbling pirate Lin Yan. And once you capture him, your future career will be guaranteed. It's not an exaggeration to say that it might soar into the sky. 2 billion, 2 billion. Who is not moved after watching it? The Marines immediately turned their attention to the Major General and Brigadier General, hoping to shout the charge slogan from their mouths. Said without politeness. As long as they give the order. Have a personal beginning. The people present will definitely rush forward and surround Lin Yan. Is it not they who have the final say on how the final trial will be conducted? At this point, many people are already ready to make a move. It's as if Lin Yan has been regarded as a meal on the plate, you are the fish and I am the knife. But it took a long time to wait. The Marines suddenly noticed that the Major Generals and Brigadiers looked ugly. It's like chewing out flies after eating. Just when ordinary Marine soldiers were confused. The Major General said, "Do you really think I can't see it?" The Brigadier curled his lips and saw Lin Yan's thoughts at a glance. He said, "You can pull me down, just say something or nothing. Ordinary Marine soldiers can't see it. Why can't they, who are used to seeing wind and waves? Who do you think Laozi is?" Laozi is a Major General. Although Laozi has a high military rank in the Marine Corps, he is still ranked high. Yes. You are exhausted. It looks like it will fall over at a push. But just think about it for a moment. In such a state, he even took the initiative to give away someone's head, and even if he thought about it with his toes, he knew there was a pit in it. Are there really such good things in this world? I'm afraid it was the moment they took action. They will definitely suffer the other party's disaster. The strength of a general. Even if it has reached this level, it's no problem to crush them with one finger. Not to mention the man with green hair behind him. And the blind man, who was leaning on a cane, watched the two of them fight all day and night. These three people. Except for Lin Yan, although the specific identities of the other two people are not known. But I didn't expect it to be much different. The reward of 2 billion and the arrest of Lin Yan are certainly tempting. But the Major General doesn't dare to gamble. He knows how much he weighs. Facing Lin Yan's temptation. Without saying a word, the Major General waved his hand, retreat. Even though the Marine soldiers were a little unwilling, obeying orders was the bounden duty of the Marines. They could only look back with unwillingness in their eyes and reluctantly left here. The expression on his face was as if he was wrong, wondering why their general didn't take advantage of his illness to kill him. Watching the Marines leave, Lin Yan sighed secretly, it's not easy to dig this hole. The Major General was right. Even to this extent, Lin Yan could kill them all with just a raise of his hand. What a pity. They don't fall for it. As for why they should take the initiative. No way. You have to take care of a smile, right? Anyway. The fight with Aramaki. And so it came to an end. We made a bet before. If I win, you have to call me captain. But the problem is, now we are evenly matched, how should we calculate this? Lin Yan looked at Huang Mu and asked. Hey! You haven't defeated me. This can only count us as a draw. Of course, we can't shout. Aramaki was naughty. His remarks. Naturally, the person on the side laughed out loud. You. Lin Yan was speechless. Although it was true, she still felt a little unhappy. Look how anxious you are. Huang Mu took in Lin Yan's expression completely. After being silent for a long time, he continued, aren't you leaving yet? Why are you standing there? Where to go? Lin Yan asked. Of course, get on the boat. What are you thinking about? Captain! Aramaki shouted solemnly. Chapter 51. On a light boat. The staffing now also comes to 4 people. Main mission, establish a pirate group. Request, as a pirate, what can you do without a pirate group? Host is requested to have an exquisite ship as a navigation tool as soon as possible. The staff should be at least 5 people including host, and ensure that everyone has influence in the original work. Achieved level A. Reward, S-level lottery. Current progress, 4/5. Looking at the system panel, there is only one main task left. Especially the people who boarded the boat were Yuxiao and Huang Mu. Lin Yan finally couldn't hold it in anymore and felt happy. With a smile on his face, he sat on the deck and giggled. The 2 future marine generals all fell into his hands. Not to mention the so-called paradise in the first half of the Grand Line. Even in the New World, I can walk sideways. Go wherever you want. How could Lin Yan not be excited? Ding, congratulations to host for setting out on a hidden mission, intercepting Hu Marine. Request, recruit 2 future marine generals on board, dig out Marine's corners, enhance its own strength, and make Marine unavailable in the future. Reward, S-level lottery. Another S-level lottery? Lin Yan was surprised. Recent. Lin Yan had already received the S-level reward and felt soft. Although the reward is too generous. Think about it for a moment. This is what Lin Yan deserves. Let's not forget about fighting Akainu and surviving 30 rounds in his hands. After the fight with Yuxiao, before he could take a breath, he faced Aramu again. It's only been a few days. Lin Yan has already fought against 3 general-level experts. The ravages of physical and mental exhaustion. If there is no reward, it's really hard to explain. S-level reward. It was still within Lin Yan's expectation. Dear host, do you want to conduct a lottery? Yes. Rewards are being drawn, the drawing is complete. Congratulations to host for obtaining 5 years of training experience, a random top-level SSR Devil Fruit, special ability, Fruit Immunity. The system quickly gave Hui. Lin Yan was surprised. This S-level reward is very different from the previous ones. Instead of improving all attributes, it was replaced by a devil fruit. Certainly. If it were just a normal devil fruit, that would be fine. SSR level devil fruit. Isn't that what it means? No matter how you draw. Are all the devil fruits obtained the most top-notch ones? In addition, there is one last special ability, fruit immunity. Fruit immunity can make the host immune to all negative effects caused by devil fruit, including the host's dark fruit. Take a quick look at the introduction. Then Lin Yan couldn't help but take a deep breath. Immune to all negative effects of devil fruit? Doesn't this mean that you can ignore all devil fruits? For example, when Yuxiao used the gravity formation last time, he was no longer stuck in the mud like before and could jump around in the formation. Another example is Aramaki's sensen fruit. Even if he is tied with vines, he cannot draw blood from his body. For example, in the magma of Akainu, he can just turn a blind eye. Of course, the physical damage caused by the large rocks condensed by the magma can be avoided. Moreover, the negative impact of the dark fruit also made Lin Yan very distressed. Now that this ability is available, Lin Yan's distress can directly turn into a glimpse and disappear. Damn it! I'm directly immune to magic, right? If only I could acquire this ability earlier. When I faced Yuxiao and Huang Mu before, I wasn't so embarrassed. Now. The arrival of freedom from control. Why don't you just take off in a spiral on the spot? Dear host, do you want to draw the SSR devil fruit? Extract. Congratulations to host, you got thunder fruit. The thunder fruit is here too. As soon as the system sound fell, Lin Yan stood up immediately. Needless to say, there is no need to say much about the ability of the thunder fruit. In other words, things like Enel are not fully developed, and their brains are lacking, so they have no idea how terrifying the thunder fruit is. The ability to control natural disasters is an ability that many people want to acquire throughout their lives. What's the result? Got to him. It became like this bird. What rubber fruit tank? Get rid of the rubber fruit. Just the strength of the thunder fruit. Not to mention all development, even if you only develop part of it, it is no problem to become a top expert in New World. Well. I still suffered the loss of appearing too early. If not for later enhancement. Lao Shadu is just a soldier. System, is it really okay to eat 2 devil fruits? Looking at a devil fruit appearing in his hand, Lin Yan pondered for a moment and then asked. After all. Take 2 devil fruits. This is something that the 4 emperors and the 5 elders dare not do. Dear host, all side effects of your devil fruit have been eliminated, please don't worry. Besides, the devil fruits given by this system will not have any side effects of devil fruits. The system replied. I see. With the systematic answer, Lin Yan felt relieved. Immediately. He bit into the thunder fruit. I thought it would be as bitter as the last time I took the dark fruit. But soon. Lin Yan's expression remained as usual, and he was even a little surprised. He couldn't help but said, it's still sweet. The last time he took the dark fruit, it was so bitter that Lin Yan couldn't help but have a cold war. Of course. That's because the dark fruit was snatched from Sachi's hands. And this thunder fruit was gifted by the system. No more side effects. Naturally, it is not as bitter and unpleasant as before. Following the consumption of devil fruit, Lin Yan only felt a fierce current igniting in his body instantly. He simply raised his hand, thunderclouds gathered on his palm, and a large amount of lightning emerged on his fingertips. Lin Yan pointed with one hand, and lightning shot out along his fingers. It hit the sea with a bang, and a huge dent was made in the sea. However, under the intrusion of sea water, it recovered again. At the same time, several fish also floated up from the sea. Seeing this scene, Lin Yan nodded secretly, is this the power of the thunder fruit? Character, Lin Yan talent, reaching the peak fruits, dark fruit LV86, thunder fruit LV60 ability, physical skills LV87 haki, armed haki LV87, knowledge haki LV86, conquerors haki LV86 items, any door, fairy beans X7. He looked at his panel again. This is incredible. Lin Yan attracted towards thunder fruit LV60. Etc. Why is it LV60? Right. He gained 5 years of cultivation experience. But the problem is, this is only 5 years of cultivation experience. He actually directly increased his newly acquired ability to such an extent. Lin Yan even thought he was dazzled. This was something that he couldn't even imagine when he was still in the Whitebeard pirates. Cow Bangras. This trip. Another fruit immunity, another thunder fruit rising rapidly, and Yuxiao and Eremu joining the team. Lin Yan couldn't be more satisfied. Chapter 52. A small boat is sailing on the sea. Feeling the benefits brought by the thunderous fruit, Lin Yan is no longer as struggling as he was before with a smile or facing Huang Mu. If we fight again, which one is strong and which one is weak is still unknown. Look at your system panel. The main task indicator is far from being completed, and there is only the last candidate left. And this invitee. Lin Yan has finalized it. Standing on the deck, he looked at the sea in front of him. Behind him, Yuxiao sat quietly under the mast, while Nami tinkered with her navigation map. Aramaki became the helmsman of the ship. It can make him a general at the helm. Looking at this sea, I am afraid it will be difficult to find the second one. Talk about being the helmsman. Aramaki naturally refused. But when he took over the helmsman position from Nami and saw that the light ship could sail automatically with a single step of the throttle without power, Aramaki seemed to have seen something alien from the sky. The shock in his eyes was hard to conceal. Lived so long. Aramaki had never heard of such bizarre things existing on the sea. It is precisely because of this. He was so itchy that he officially joined the job and became the helmsman. Apart from eating and sleeping every day, he was studying how to control the light boat. After several days of sailing, Lin Yan and his party finally arrived at their destination. In front of them, it is an endless scorching desert. Because they had just docked, the temperature in the desert was not too high yet. But just a glance, Nami was a little worried. Seeing the scorching heat and the high temperature distortion everywhere, Nami couldn't help but take a breath. She looked at Lin Yan and asked, "Is the person you are looking for really here?" "You'll find out once you go in and take a look." Lin Yan chuckled. Desert area. Naturally, one cannot sail in a boat. And light boats cannot be left unattended. Yuxiao proposed to stay and watch the boat. Hearing this, Huang Mu also said he didn't want to move and would rather stay on the boat. Look at the two people acting lazy. Lin Yan sighed. Anyway, calling them over will not help. It's better to go there in person. Then, the two sides were divided into two teams. Aramaki Yuxiao and the others stayed on the light boat, while Lin Yan took Nami and the two deep into Alabasta. In the desert kingdom, the sun is scorching, and the sunlight is shining on the ground. Even through a layer of cloth shoes, you can still feel the high temperature splashing from the ground. In the small town of Alabasta, Nami picked up her old trumpet again. Incarnate as a thief cat, with a strong body, hiding among the crowd, constantly inquiring about information in the streets and alleys. When it's almost understood, she stopped at a hotel and walked up through the back door. "Nami, what did you find out today?" As soon as he opened the door, Lin Yan's voice came from inside the room. Nami dragged her tired body and slowly entered the house. She said resentfully, "You are good at summoning people. You don't do anything here, so you just let me go outside to find out information. As a captain, how can you do such a small thing yourself? No, you just come in handy, don't you?" Sitting on the couch, Lin Yan held his chin and said with a smile. "If I had known I would have been on the boat with them." Nami muttered. Of course she was talking about Yuxiao and Huang Mu. Following Lin Yan out was like suffering. If only it were somewhere else. Where is this place? Desert Kingdom. Under such a strong and scorching sun, her skin was completely tanned. Nami felt very distressed. "What did you find out today?" Lin Yan continued to ask, and she didn't expect Nami to collect any useful information. Almost everyone in the Baroque studio under Crocodile can hold up half the sky. If only their information could be found so quickly. Then these agents are really getting better and better. Sure enough. Just like Lin Yan thought. After 3 days of gathering information. But she still found nothing. Even in the past, Nami was in the aspect of tracing, counter-tracing and stealing Grandmaster. After all, it's a matter of drawing water from a bamboo basket. Of course. So many days of hard work. Nami is not without gains. About the information Lin Yan wanted. Already obtained by Nami. After receiving the information sent by Nami, Lin Yan lowered his head and saw that there were several photos above, and it was Nico Robin in the photos. Lin Yan praised, well done. Nami raised her head and corrected her, I have been working hard outside for so many days and I have been tanned by the sun. Why do you just give me such a salty comment? Lin Yan glanced sideways, then what do you want? Nami turned his head and said nothing, but his cheeks were slightly red, as if he was expecting something. Lin Yan thought Nami was asking for money. She had never been immune to money. After working hard for so long, she deserved some amount. Lin Yan said very proudly, okay, I'll reward you with some money later. Reward? Money? Damn it. This sentence was just finished. Nami suddenly changed from the initial expectation to shock, and then became furious. She was so angry that she stamped her feet, and the blush just now was gone. He cursed loudly, idiot, I will ignore you. As the door closed with a bang, Lin Yan touched his nose and laughed. Why doesn't he know what Nami is thinking? Recalling Nami's appearance. It's quite fun to tease this girl once in a while. Now that Nico Robin's footprints have been found. Then next. Everything is solved. On top of a tall building in the desert. Lin Yan stood with his hands behind his hands, his eyes shining brightly. It was delayed for several days. It's time to take action. Chapter 53. The capital of the Kingdom of Alabasta. Inside an alley in Tail Street. There stands a house here. The house is 3 stories high, with luxurious exterior decoration and a very large courtyard. At this time, the 3rd floor window is open, facing the rising sun outside. Nico Robin closed the book in her hand and returned it to its original position. In front of her was a large area of historical and literary allusions and records. These are basically a small part of Nico Robin's daily basic reading knowledge. Day after day, reading ancient and modern history has become normal for her. Come to the window. Nico Robin breathed in the fresh air, hoping to briefly find a ray of hard-won warmth under the rising sun. Since joining Crocodile's command and become a member of the Baroque studio, I don't know how many years have passed. Although she had found a brief shelter from the rain in her wandering life, Nico Robin knew it very well. Such a harbor. Sooner or later, it will turn into a sharp long knife, insert into her chest, and become a sharp blade that takes away her life, but she will not be immune. Only the difference is. But she didn't know when this day would come. When Nico Robin was lost in thought, a clear and magnetic voice came to his ears, and the man said, it's really unexpected that the son of the devil also has such a sentimental side. The sound was not loud, but it just covered the entire room. The sudden voice made Nico Robin, who was hesitating, suddenly raise her head, her eyes changed from complicated to alert, and she shouted, who? While talking, Nico Robin instantly entered a fighting state, with her arms crossed, and the atmosphere was tense, as if the gun was going to go off in the next second. Sitting on the sofa, Lin Yan waited and found that it was soft and not bad. He greeted, hello. Miss Robin. Nico Robin looked sternly, looked directly at Lin Yan and asked, who are you? Haha, does it matter who I am? On the contrary, I like your 70 million reward. Lin Yan smiled slightly, like a judge who was passing down a death sentence. His tone was not only playful, but also calm and confident, which made Nico Robin take a step back. Hear the words. Nico Robin stared at Lin Yan. She had not heard the name Son of the Devil for many years. This was during the incident in O'Hara that year. Marine gave her the nickname of Bounty. It is precisely because of carrying this bounty since childhood that Nico Robin runs around, day and night, vigilant everywhere, and becomes homeless. For Marine, she is smoke from the bottom of her heart. And now that the other party has found him, the gate of opening is so straightforward. No need to think about it. The other party must be prepared. Seeing Lin Yan appear in his room with such fanfare, Nico Robin was also completely rude. Her black hair was like a waterfall, her hands were crossed, and she shouted, twirling flower. A few moments. Several slender hands suddenly appeared on Lin Yan's body. Although Nico Robin is not as good as Crocodile, one of the current 7 warlords of the sea. But after all, he is also the vice president of Baroque Studio. Whether it's power, status, or years of experience, Nico Robin's strength cannot be underestimated. Just a wave. The power of the flower fruit is activated. Some grabbed Lin Yan's hand, and some even strangled Lin Yan's neck. Watching his devil fruit work on Lin Yan easily, Nico Robin's eyes tightened, and then she said, lock. The spinning flower worked on Lin Yan. It enveloped him in an instant, wanting to keep him in place. However, facing Nico Robin, who burst out with all his strength, Lin Yan just shouted lightly, "Discharge." The thunder fruit is activated. Under the blessing of extremely terrifying natural disasters, how can you resist the power of flowers and fruits? They were instantly defeated. In the erosion of the current, it was reduced to nothing and disappeared into thin air. What? Nico Robin did not expect that her move would not work on Lin Yan. She was just about to launch a second round of attacks. But suddenly, she just felt like her eyes were blurred. Lin Yan was sitting on the sofa just now. It disappeared in the blink of an eye. Not only that, an invisible big hand quietly came from behind her and put it on her shoulder. And the moment the other party touched him, Nico Robin was shocked to find that her flower fruit ability was fading at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Devil fruit powers. Invalid? There was no time to surprise Nico Robin. Lin Yan had already pressed her against the wall. The other hand covered Nico Robin's mouth. She could only make a sound of woo woo woo. Feeling the man's breath close at hand, Nico Robin's pupils tightened. She ignored the dissipation of her devil fruit and struggled wildly with her limbs, trying to break free from Lin Yan's restraints. But how could Nico Robin, who picked up devil fruit powers, be able to break free? The feeling of powerlessness in her body made Nico Robin look pale. At the same time, Lin Yan's calm voice slowly came over. "You said that if the people organized by the CP knew that you were still alive, knew that you were in this desert kingdom, and knew that you were working for Crocodile, what do you think they will do? Miss Robin, you don't want people from the CP organization to know that you are here, right?" As soon as this statement came out, Nico Robin, who was still struggling fiercely just now, suddenly stopped. Her pupils were flashing with disbelief, and she looked at Lin Yan in front of her with a shocked expression. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.